Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. May the 4th be with you. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblyman Miller. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Chair Watts.
I am here. Thank you. We do have a quorum. Please mark other members present as they arrive. Members, we have 4 bills on our agenda today. There's quite a bit going on, including the Senate floor still being in session right now. So we're going to do our best to keep things moving. I know that there are presentations, there are other events going on, and so we may have some members coming in and out. Please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. Anyone wishing to provide public comment or testimony by phone can find the information to do so on our agendas, which are publicly posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. Anyone in person, please do sign in at the table. Provide a business card if you have one. With that, we are going to go out of order so that we can try and keep our agenda moving. So we are going to start with SB 349 and then take it from there depending on who we have available to present. So with that, I'm going to open up the hearing on SB 349, which revises provisions relating to document preparation services. We have Mr. Arroyo here to help present the bill. Welcome, sir. I see we have some folks down in Southern Nevada as well. So welcome. Whenever you're ready, please state and spell your name for the record, and you can begin.
My name is Rafael Arroyo, Rafael Arroyo. Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. This is Senator Flores is helping. I'm the president of the Registration Services Association of Nevada, where we represent third-party DMV registration services, and Senator Flores is a sponsor of this bill. As the chair said, he's in Senate floor right now, so I will kind of give his part. There's 2 parts to this bill. The first part has to do with third-party registration services and advertising. Back in 2019, there was a law that was passed that made it difficult for the industry to advertise their services because the DMV said that they didn't want us to use the words DMV in their name. So we were able to come to an agreement with them where we said, hey, can we just put something after the letters DMV? And so we were able to do that. The second part of the bill has to do with document preparation services. We're licensed as document preparers, and this was an amendment that was proposed by the Secretary of State in order to give them a little bit more teeth to go after the bad actors. So I think Maggie down from the Secretary of State is down in Las Vegas, and she will speak about that amendment. You guys should have that. I'll go over here quickly, just one page here of the prepared stuff that I have. So the registration services industry has over 80 small businesses in the Reno, Carson, and Las Vegas areas. This is a group of mostly minority and women-owned businesses that has almost doubled in size since 2019. We are currently licensed as document preparers by the Nevada Secretary of State. When we process DMV registration transactions on behalf of customers, I like to say think of it as DoorDash, but for the DMV instead of food. So the industry has been advocating for better partnership with the DMV for decades, but has really only made significant progress through the legislative process. In 2019, the DMV passed a bill, AB 63, that prohibited the use, advertising, or promoting a business using any name or likeness of the department. This law made any business using the letters DMV in their name advertising illegal. After the law went into effect, it was being enforced on any new businesses joining the industry. The DMV communicated that their plan was to fully enforce it across all businesses, but we've given us about a 30 to 45 days notice before doing so. The purpose of SB 349 is to establish a compromise with DMV where the industry members can still communicate their message of offering DMV registration services, but not insinuate to customers that they are the DMV. The law will allow industry members to use the letters DMV, but only if it is followed by the word services or registration services. It will also have industry members state that they are a third-party business not affiliated with the DMV on their advertising. And this compromise has already been discussed with DMV leadership and agreed to by all parties. This compromise will benefit both the DMV and clients. It will reduce the need for some clients to come directly to the DMV offices for registration services and facilitate timely registration for clients who need access to local registration service sites, thus avoiding late fees and other charges. SB 349 offers your constituents a choice for their DMV services, and I thank you in advance for the passage of this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arroyo. We'll go down to Las Vegas to hear from the Secretary of State's office about the other provisions of the bill and the latest proposed amendment, and then we'll open it up to questions from members.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. My name is Maggie Salas Crespo, and I serve as the Deputy Secretary of State for Southern Nevada on behalf of Secretary of State Francisco V. Aguilar. In this role, I oversee the Document Preparation Services Program within the Office of the Secretary of State. I would like to start off by thanking Senator Flores for working with our office on this important piece of legislation, which will streamline our compliance of the program. I will go over sections 2 through 9 of this bill and then present an amendment to the bill. The amendment stems from conversations with the industry, Mr. Rafael here, and changes to the language for consistency with the rest of our chapter. The section I will be presenting here today reflect language borrowed from notary law, NRS 240. It has been our experience that most notary publics are document preparation services and vice versa. Therefore, sections 2 through 9 of this bill seek to bring uniformity in the compliance of these two programs. Before I start, I would like to mention that this bill does not change existing fee structures. Reprint 1 of this bill does include a $10 fee for certificate reprints due to name change, but we will be removing that fee from the language. This will be in the amendment I will be presenting here today. So to start off with section 2, that adds 2 new sections to our statute, which are section 3 and 4. Section 3 of the bill would require registrants to report changes to their information to the Secretary of State's office and request reprint of certificate of registration if needed due to a name change of the registrant. Section 4 of this bill covers registration requirements as well. This addresses fines that can be brought forward for misrepresenting themselves as document preparation services without being properly registered with our office. This will allow our office to assess a fine of no more than $1,000 for each violation. Again, I want to mention here that while we are not, this is an existing fee structure, we're just copying it from another section, so this is already existent, and people misrepresenting themselves as document preparation services is one of the biggest issues we have with compliance. Section 5 addresses the advertisement for services and statement to the document preparation service must display. We provide a revised statement that they must display that includes that they cannot accept fees for giving legal advice. This allows our office to assess fines for document preparation services improperly advertising themselves and for giving legal advice. This would allow our office to assess a fine of no more than $1,000 for each violation and or suspend or revoke the registration. Section 6 addresses prohibited acts by registrants. This would allow our office to suspend or revoke the registration of a document preparation service or assess a fine of no more than $1,000 for each violation of provisions in this section. Section 7 addresses investigations by alleged violations and penalties our office can bring forward. This allows the Secretary of State to refuse to renew, suspend, or revoke the registration of a document preparation services who do not collaborate with our office on investigations for alleged violations. Section 8 addresses actions to be taken by the Secretary of State for violations of this chapter. This would allow the Secretary of State's office to proceed with suspending or revoking a registration pending a hearing in our office, if our office believes it is in the best interest or necessary to protect the public. Lastly, Section 9 makes this bill effective July 1st, 2023. Now I will go over conceptual amendments that captures some concerns and discussions we had with the industry, as well as some changes needed for consistency with the rest of this chapter. First would be an amendment to Section 1, subsection 6C. This amendment provides that the document preparation services doing business as a third-party service, the statement that they should use. Providing a statement ensures uniformity to meet this requirement. We just want to make sure ensure that DMV third-party services have a set statement, and that way there's no confusion there on what they should be displaying. We will also be striking out Section 1, subsection 3C to remove the $10 fee. On Section 4, subsection 2, we will strike out civil and strike out attorney fees and costs to replace it with investigative fees and costs. This change comes from a conversation with our legal counsel. The language here is meant to address investigations where they are at the level within our agency, which makes it an administrative process. The change in the language would reflect that. On Section 5, subsection 1, we would like to strike out license and replace it with authorize. License is a prohibited term within our chapter, and while the context of the statement is different, we don't want to create confusion for registrants. On Section 5, subsection 3, we would like to strike out guilty and replace it with in violation of. Similar to the amendment on Section 4, we would be at the administrative level here, so this clarifies that. Additionally, we will change shall to may to indicate that the Secretary of State would take one of 3 approaches, A, B, or C, in that subsection. Additionally, we would strike out civil on this subsection for the same reasons previously mentioned. On Section 5, subsection 4, we would strike out 1,000 and replace it with, and I didn't get that over here. Sorry, replace it with no less than 100 or more than 5,000 for each fee. Again, I do want to note that we're not changing existing fee levels. This change would reflect the highest level of a fine we can pursue if found guilty in a criminal violation. This range is already reflective in NRS 248.280. We're requesting this change for consistency with existing fee structure. On Section 6, subsection 4, we would strike out guilty and replace it with in violation of and change shall to may, as previously stated here, as well as civil, again, for the same reasons previously mentioned. And on Section 7, subsection 2, we would strike out revoke. Another section of NRS already covered instances of when we would resort to revoking a registration. On Section 7, subsection 3B2, we would amend the language to change the order in which we can proceed with violations. Currently, even in clear instances of violation, like operating without properly registered as a document preparation services, we cannot proceed with the fine without first conducting a hearing. This section was added to our statute by Assembly Bill 245 from the 2021 legislative session by then Assemblyman Flores. This amendment would remove the requirement to first conduct a hearing before imposing a fine. I do want to note that this does not mean the hearings process would be completely removed. It will just be part of our, it would still be part of our compliance and just give our office a bit more flexibility there. Lastly, we are going to add a new section to require the Secretary of State to notify registrants of alleged violations and allow for a response. We already do this in practice, but we would like to reflect this in statute to ensure due process for registrants. And again, since we are making some changes to compliance, we want to make sure we protect that due process for registrants as well. So this concludes the presentations of sections 2 through 9 and the amendments to this bill. The main purpose of this bill, again, I want to reiterate, is to streamline our compliance and to allow our office to assess fines for violations in a speedier manner. Since the creation of Document Preparation Services Program, the focus of our investigator has been bringing people into compliance. Now, however, as Mr. Rafael mentioned, we are left to deal with those who refuse to comply, and these changes will allow us to assess fines on these bad actors. We're thankful for Senator Flores for working with us and for the members of the industry for sharing their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that concludes the presentation. With that, we'll open it up for questions. We'll begin with Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you very much. There's an old adage that says your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them. Has there been any thought to the validity and legitimacy that having these logos and the terms on them would infer to our communities where English is not their first language?
Rafael Arroyo for the record. I think that is the purpose of the bill, is to say, hey, we're third-party registration services, and that's how we describe what we do. We have a lot of businesses that are in that area. We serve a lot of that population. They know what we do, but with the Secretary of State being able to enforce those bad actors, there are, you know, a small number of people that may be doing that, and that's why they have that authority to be able to enforce.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional questions? All right. Assemblywoman Peters, go ahead. No problem. All right, never mind. That concludes questions. So with that, thank you again very much for to both of you for the presentation. With that, we will move on to testimony. We'll begin with testimony in support of Senate Bill 349. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support, either in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please feel free to come forward. All right. Welcome, sir. Whenever you're ready, please proceed. Just remember to state and spell your name for the record before you begin.
My name is Achilles Arroyo, and for the record, Aquilysarroyo. I'm testifying in support of SB 349 because I see how hard my dad works and how he really cares about this industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Well done. Perfect length as well. Adults could learn from that. Seeing nobody else here to testify in support in person, Broadcast Production Services, can we see if we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 349 by phone?
To provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 349, please press star 9 or raise hand in Zoom window to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide testimony in support at this time.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to provide testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 349? Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, BPS, can we check the phones?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 349, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to testimony in neutral on Senate Bill 349. Oh, I think we do have some questions for the department, though. So, Mr. Sever, come on up.
Sean Sarah from the DMV. We are neutral on this bill, and we appreciate working with the sponsor.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you so much for being here. I wanted a little bit more background information on what your current relationship is with third parties. Can you talk a little bit about what those existing relationships look like, and if there's any intention of increasing working together with third parties?
Sure, Sean Sever from the DMV. I believe we do have a good relationship with them. We appreciate all the help we can get at the DMV. As you know, we are moving most of our services online in the next 2 years, and that's our solution to free up our offices. But yeah, kiosks, alternative services, anything else that can help us out, we appreciate it.
So do you imagine those relationships kind of expanding as you go more virtual and less in person, or are you expecting to be managing most of those services in-house through that expansion?
Sean Sever from the DMV. Right now, it's hard to tell what's going to happen there. We are just nose to the grind, working through our transformation right now. Very large project, and once the dust settles, we'll be able to figure that out.
Can I ask just one more question? And this it comes, I think, from in the Health and Human Services Committee. We ask this question a lot. Language access. Do you use third parties to help with language access and language barriers?
Sean Sever from the DMV. Yes, we do. We have a language access plan that I'd be happy to share with you that goes over the whole program.
Thank you very much, and don't go anywhere yet. We've got questions from the vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sever. Can you paint a picture of what this service does to assist the DMV in being successful? And really, are there scheduled appointments that they're able to do a number of transactions quickly? What is the advantage of building this relationship for the DMV?
Yes, Sean Sever from the DMV. That might be a question for Mr. Arroyo, other than me, but like I said before, we appreciate all the help we can get.
Welcome back, Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you, Rafael Arroyo, for the record. Yes, so there are a couple of windows in the south, in the metro offices, that registration services used. This was put into NRS through legislation in 2019, and basically we have two options. Businesses can have a standing appointment. They have 30 minutes to process as many transactions as possible. And then there is another window that they call the walk-up window, where businesses come in a first-come, first-served basis, and they just do 3 at a time, to get through as many businesses as possible. And the advantages for DMV is we prepare the documents into a transaction that can be done, very expediently, about 2 to 3 times as fast as a regular technician, because we don't have, customers just walking up to the window or fumbling for paperwork or things like that. So we prepare those documents, we look through them. And in regards to the Assemblywoman's other questions as far as the language barriers, that's something that we really help out with, especially on the east side, a lot of Hispanic population. We help them prepare those forms and understand what they're looking at, and make sure that they have their stuff lined up so that they can get their vehicles registered.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions?
Assemblyman Watts, I would just like to add a little bit there.
Please go ahead.
Maggie Salas Crespo, for the record. I just wanted to add that in regards to the Secretary of State's office, what we do here is we register document preparation services, and DMV third-party services fall under that category. They're not the only category. We also have tax preparers. We also have people that just prepare other legal documents. And the benefit of that is that there are some community members that, due to their work schedule or, again, limited English proficiency, or just not having enough time to be sitting at a DMV office or at some of these services for a long time, they utilize these services, and they are widely used by our Latino population. For that program, all of my staff are Spanish speakers, so these services are widely used by the Latino Spanish-speaking community. But in terms of compliance, again, this is why some of these changes that we are proposing today are important, and that's why we have some words in particular within the NRS for doc prep that I prohibited, because a notario here is not the same as a notario in Mexico. They have a lot more, or in another Latin American country, and they have a lot more training and legal certifications that notaries here do, and doc prep and notary are sometimes used interchangeably because they do similar transactions. And when it comes to compliance, our office works very closely with the DMV. So whenever we do have a complaint related to a DMV third-party services, we coordinate with the DMV to look at those complaints. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and hopefully with these additional changes to strengthen the statute, these preparation services will not have as many issues in the future. So with that...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Sever, go ahead.
Sean Sever from the DMV. I wanted to expand on my answer from before. The goal of our transformation effort is to get the majority of our customers going online for their services, which in turn we hope will free up our offices so it's more of a relaxed atmosphere. The old business model of everybody trying to pile into the DMV in person just doesn't work anymore. So that's why we've gone to appointments and we're going online, and we're hoping that'll solve a lot of our issues in our offices.
Thank you, Mr. Sever. I appreciate that. We certainly hope the same. And again, during the time that I've been in serving in this body, we've heard a lot of different conversations and the need to really modernize some of those systems, but also to make sure in that modernization that a whole range of service options and possibilities are enabled through that. And so I think that this discussion kind of leads to the importance of a really holistic solution. And I think this bill speaks to that as well. So thank you. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you again both. Seeing nobody else wishing to come forward in the neutral category, BPS, can we see if anyone wishes to provide neutral testimony on SB 349 by phone?
Provide testimony in neutral of Senate Bill 349. Please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. And not seeing any closing remarks?
Raphael Arroyo for the record. I just want to thank you guys for asking those questions, and also that the bill is no longer a 2/3 bill, so it's not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 349. Keeping things moving, I believe we have some folks here that can help present Senate Bill 293. So I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 293, which revises provisions relating to distributed generation systems. I believe we have Mr. Hamili and Mr. Kruger here. Welcome to you both. Whenever you're ready, just remember to state your name for the record and spell it the first time, and you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Kruger for the record, Krueger, first name Mark. Thank you for having us today, and we're sorry that Senator Donate wasn't able to attend. However, if he were here, he would tell you how he brought this bill because his grandfather was told something at the time of a purchase of a residential rooftop solar, which was not true. And what ended up happening was a lot of other issues that befell his grandfather. And it was a simple statement. It was really, you will not get an electric bill. And if you're on the grid and you purchase residential rooftop solar, you will continue to get an electric bill. So there are a lot of inducements like this that we've seen increasing ever since residential rooftop solar came back into Nevada in 2015. And as a result, Senator Donate asked us to assist, along with Mr. Hammy here, to come up with legislation. I'd like to take you through the legislation, but first I'd like to turn it over to Steve here, who can also just give you a little bit more background.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. Stephen Hamili for the record, Chief Executive Officer of SolUp. Thank you, Chair Watson, committee members.
Thank you. And just to make sure we get the record extremely clear, can you spell your name
Certainly.
once for the record before we move forward?
Yes, Hamile.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
All right, so the history, I want to give you a little history of our company because it kind of sets the background for what we're looking to do. SolUp was founded in 2008 as a 3-person company, really with an engineering platform, looking more for it not as sales but in engineering. And due to that, it all started with employees, starting from our energy consultants in the field to our engineering teams internally and our installation crews. We grew to have 2 NAPCEP certified individuals. That represents the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. It's the highest level of electrical training you can have for the photovoltaic industry. We've always paid 401ks, medical, access to dental, and very liberal PTO policies. We employ a full-time safety director who visits all of our job sites daily to make sure that we're in compliance. We have an indoor training facility where we have a mock faux roof. All of our installers undergo training on this roof type so that we can determine S-tile, clay tile, all for safety management. Our group over these years has grown from 3 to 140, and we'll install over 20 megawatts this year. I bring this up because we were able to succeed throughout those years without cutting any corners, without engaging the use of any third-party lead generation sources that were selling on our behalf. SB 358 provided an extremely pioneering and innovative proposal, 50% renewable energy by 2030 and a 100% carbon-free environment in the state of Nevada by 2050. Both ambitious and pioneering, but both requires the confidence of the consumer. The confidence of the consumer has been eroded by deceptive trade practices, misinformation, and half-truths. Things like free solar, the investment, the IRA is a check in the mail, not a tax credit. You'll never see a utility bill. You can consume as much electricity as you want once solar is put on your roof. You can declare yourself as a farm and take full advantage of a system depreciation tax credit. Some will undersize the system to be price competitive. I receive 2 calls per week and numerous emails from sales organizations wanting us to install, quote, their installation projects. This all comes at the cost of the consumer. When the consumer is told the reality, it doesn't just cast a poor notion on the company that misrepresented the facts, but it takes down our entire industry. And many people that may have moved forward with solar now have a distrust for the entire industry. That makes it very difficult to reach our 2030 goals. This is not regulation, it's common sense and a consumer protection bill. It protects the elderly and disadvantaged, which are the most affected now. It protects guardrails. It really provides guardrails to protect the industry. It's not a cost burden. I think we've proven that. And what's interesting, all of these 1099 lead generation sources also use 1099 personnel. There's not one employee in their organization. So we look forward to your support of this bill, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hamili. Welcome, Senator. I know you just got up here from the Senate floor, so feel free to take a moment, but we've just kind of begun the presentation of the bill, so any remarks that you would like to add, please feel free whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair Watts, and good afternoon to the members of Assembly Growth and Infrastructure. I'm fortunate that I have my co-presenters start this bill hearing, but I also wanted to highlight just a little bit background as to why this conversation is needed. For the record, Fabian Doñate, and I'm proud to represent Senate District 10. Today's bill hearing on Senate Bill 293, which revises provisions relating to renewable energy and energy conservation, I think it's very timely for the experiences that we're hearing. We're going to talk about the technicality of what this issue entails, and we'll be happy to answer questions, but I think the personal anecdote is probably the most important. And for me, it's one that has impacted my family, and it's one that I believe that we can continue to restore equity in consumer protection provisions already agreed to by the legislature. Last year, when I was knocking on doors and meeting with my neighbors, I started to learn about the issues that families in my district cared most about. In that same time frame, my own family had encountered an issue that we probably did not expect, but it's an issue that I believe many of the residents in this state are finding themselves in. In the last few years, we have seen an influx of solar panels being installed in our neighborhoods, and it's been great. The transition to solar energy can reduce the burden of carbon emissions, but I want to be clear with one thing. Not every solar panel is installed the same, or in our case, sold the same. Within a short time span, we saw one of our very own family members install solar panels on the roof of their home. It sparked a debate in our family. How could we let our 70-year-old relative install these panels on their homes, knowing full well they couldn't afford to do so? When we asked our relative as to why they installed these panels on the roof of their home, they mentioned, "It's fine, it's going to reduce my electric bill. The finances of it will balance out in the next few years." From the perspective of my family and the encounter that we had gone through, I think it's clear to say that we need to make some sort of change to address the gaps in our consumer protection laws. Over the last 2 years, we have seen a massive change in the practices underground as to how these cell services are delivered. We are now seeing fake public notices being left on homes, encouraging the installation of solar panels, and we need to continue to reform the trade practices that are being exhibited in our communities. Taking advantage of our seniors and of our residents, failing to disclose adequate information in the appropriate language of the participating parties are efforts that we should consider for reform, and that's why we're here today. So I wanted to go ahead and allow my co-presenters any other thoughts and remarks before we answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Kruger again for the record. So I'd like to just really briefly, understanding the committee's under some time constraints, but just briefly go through the bill and some of the amendments that we added. So Section 2 provides, and the majority of the bill amend Chapter 598, which is Nevada's Deceptive Trade Practices Act. This is important because this distributed generation systems, which include residential photovoltaic systems, which is solar, is governed already by Chapter 598, as well as in a component of it by Chapter 624, which is the Nevada State Contractors Board. So Section 2 of the bill requires a follow-up, if you will, from the solar company to ensure that the purchaser, within 48 hours, to ensure that the purchaser understands the terms that were told to them at the time of the sale. So that if there is a problem such as, oh, I will not receive a solar bill, that should come to light at that time. This also, in addition to saving the consumers time and effort and money, it also saves the solar companies time and effort and money, because the companies themselves, it's very expensive to install and then have to uninstall if it turns out that there's a problem. So this follow-up provision will allow that to be recorded, because we're getting a lot of complaints that it says, well, the solar company sales says, no, that's not what we said, and the buyer says that's what they said. So it's a lot of finger pointing back and forth. The recording would absolve that issue. So as we go through this, the ability to rescind is already in Nevada law, and you should be able to rescind this solar contract if you change your mind within 3 days. We left that provision in there, but made it clearer that it's at no cost, and then that's the reason for the 48-hour either telephone, in-person recording, any type of recording, so that that rescission can be done in that time frame. The next sections of the bill, the first one addresses the actual definition of solar, and this is Section 5. Section 5 was originally set up so that solar, the distributed generation system, which includes the solar, was only applicable to residential consumers that were on the grid. This makes it very clear that it's applicable to any residential consumer. So say you're out in the rurals and you're not hooked to the grid, or you're in some other area where you're not hooked to the grid, it would apply as well, these protections. Section 6 of this bill starts the agreements. There's 3 agreements, and Section 6, 7, and 8 address it. They're all the same language. It really covers the notices that have to be given, and it makes it very, very clear that you have a right to rescind up front. It makes it very clear that there's going to be a follow-up call that you will, participate in, so that you can go over your decision about making this purchase. These purchases are very expensive, so the average purchaser, generally speaking, should consider this carefully before actually fulfilling all the way through with the solar, and then not understanding that there was a misrepresentation made at the time. So these provisions are set up to cover it, and if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and address that when I'm finished here. Section 8 of the bill then provides, I'm sorry, I took you through that already. Section 8 is the last of the agreements. Section 9 of the bill provides that when a violation of this chapter occurs, such that there's an installation and there was an inducement or a false misrepresentation to induce consumers to purchase, that they actually, and we can show that there's a violation of the chapter, that the purchaser then would have the option of voiding the contract. This is important for the purchaser because it alleviates the back and forth of getting out of a contract when you were induced falsely into getting into the contract. And so we find that to be a really good provision that should save a lot of heartache and trouble. It also ensures that the solar companies want to make sure that they have done their due diligence in making sure that the purchaser understands the contract before entering into it, thereby saving themselves a lot of money. Moving on to the next provision. Because I had mentioned earlier that the Contractors Board also regulates the solar industry to a degree, this provision amends a piece of the NRS Chapter 624 to ensure that all members who are out selling to the public are licensed contractors or work for as W-2 employees, licensed contractors. And the last provision provides, or Section 10 provides for, what we've noticed is that there's a lot of complaints where the sales pitch was done in a language other than English, and then it's rushed and the consumer and purchaser enters into this agreement. All we think is that it's very fair that if you're going to negotiate in that language, you should provide a copy of the contract and all of the information you're providing in English to them in that language that you're negotiating in as well. And then the final provision just clears up a definition to ensure expectations are met at the time of the noticing in the agreement. And with that, I kept it succinct and will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you all very much for the presentation. With that, we'll open it up to questions from members of the committee. Vice Chair Brown-May.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I am also in a neighborhood that has experienced many confusing scenarios with regard to solar installation and what does that look like on each individual home. So I appreciate the energy and thought process of what you've put into this measure. You mentioned a W-2 employee, and I'm wondering if you could just talk through that. Does that mean that an organization can't host a 1099 employee? Are we getting into employment provisions, and what's the reasoning behind that?
Thank you. Mark Kruger for the record. Chair, through you or direct?
You may go directly to the member. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Madam Vice Chair, the reasoning behind it is just to ensure that there's more accountability for the salespeople who work for the solar companies. So having somebody that actually works for your company, there's more regulatory authority by the contractors board and more accountability by the salesperson directly from the company, rather than third-party salespeople where the current practice is where sometimes the company doesn't even know the name of the individuals who's out there selling for them.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I sincerely appreciate the consideration. I'm just curious to know how we can really legislate how a company does business relative to the employment status of its employees. And do you see that there's any possible barrier that we're going to see as a result of that provision?
Madam Vice Chair, thank you for the question. Mark Kruger for the record. I do not see a barrier. I think that there's other areas in the industry where in other industries where we've seen that type of requirement that you need to work for a licensed solar company, especially in the areas where we've seen so much abuse and misrepresentation. It's certainly a way to hold these salespeople accountable, and it doesn't put that much greater burden on these sales companies.
Thank you. Members, additional questions? Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. So kind of along the same lines of my colleague Brown-May, I guess I'm kind of curious where the folks who are actually employed or are the contractors at the moment, kind of where they stand. How does it work? Are they able to maybe contract with multiple providers? Are they able to create a business model where they are showing up as being able to offer different solutions amongst solar installers, or are they exclusive to just one provider? And then in those who are doing the work the right way, are they preferring to become W-2 employees, or are they preferring to be 1099?
Assemblyman Miller, great question, and I think that it would be best if I have somebody who's in the industry actually answer that question, because he can really provide some insight into that. And if he has, it may prompt me to have additional comments as well. But
Stephen Amelie for the record. Chair Watts, am I responding to you directly or to?
You can respond directly to the member. Thank you.
Could you restate the question, sir?
It was a long one, so we'll see what parts we get to. I think the main thing that I want to understand is how does the relationship work now? What type of authority or business relationship do those current contracted salespeople have? Are they able to sell for multiple solar installer contractors? And then the next piece of that would be, where are they in this conversation? Do they desire to remain as independent contractors, or are they looking to be employees?
Steve Amelie for the record. There's several different answers to that. One, most of these companies are primary to a specific installer. and they wear the shirt of the installer. They represent that they are an agent for XYZ contractor, and the majority of their business goes through to them. And this is from firsthand knowledge from some of these agencies coming to us and asking if they would, if they would like to, they'd like to move, quote, their business over to us. Others, we understand, do provide for multiple agencies. So you may have a sales company that is now going to 3 or 4 different solar installers, and they're representing that they are a broker for solar services. Most of them, we have tried to bring some on board and trying to maybe raise the level of them and bring them on as employees. And the reason that we find that they don't wish to become employees is because not only do they run a 1099 environment that they'd like to be in, but all of their sales associates are also 1099. And in their words, we would have to pay state unemployment, workers' compensation, et cetera, and so their cost of operations would be significantly higher than if they were brought on employees. Having said that, this is a very technical business. This is not something that I'll take 3 panels and 1 inverter, Mr. Miller, and then we put this on your home. This is something that really needs to be engineered and installed by a licensed electrical contractor. So what we're really seeing is, and I don't want to put this in a bad light, we're seeing a timeshare type of style and approach to selling something that's much more technical than that. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. So I guess for those folks, so I think there are folks who choose and desire to work through a 1099 model. So I have been pretty much either a business owner or independent contractor through most of my adult working life. And I would always choose that option when I was given the option, right? I would actually shy away from W-2 employee roles for most of my life, right? So I'm curious where those folks who are doing the work now, what their position is on potentially becoming, not so much the businesses, I understand where the businesses lie because it does create some additional responsibilities, but the actual folks that are out doing the sales. And then I'm curious to know, have we looked at or considered anything as it relates to a certification for selling or a certain knowledge base, proven knowledge base to be then registered or something like that as someone qualified to make these sales that could still operate on an independent basis. So that we can address the consumer protectionism part of it and say, hey, these folks need to know more about what they're doing when they're out there, but they may still, for whatever their business reasons are as individuals, may still want to remain independent contractors.
Thank you for the question. Assemblyman Miller, this is Mark Kruger for the record. So there's a couple things that, and I'll try to break it down and answer all of your questions. We have talked to some industry members, and some of the industry members, and some of these are solar companies, and some are actually sales companies, but there's a lot of people who might work for multiple sales companies or as 1099 employees or jump from one company to another. What is happening then in the industry through our complaint, and remember, we're coming from a consumer protection perspective, the misrepresentations at the time of the sale, not into the technical component of it. That's really under the contractor's board more than our point. Our point is on the actual sale and the entering into the contract, and the contract's laid out in Chapter 598. So what's happening is sometimes these companies might find an actor that they don't particularly care for working for. They discuss it with this other company that they have contracted with and say, I don't want this employee working for them anymore. They take care of that, and then they find out later on that this same employee, or not employee, but 1099 employee, is actually working for them again, doing the same type of activity that they tried to prohibit because they had no idea, because they had multiple contracts with these companies. What this will do, the legislation will clean it up so that the individuals are accountable to the company. We believe that along with that will be these companies taking pride in their own workmanship and training of their salespersons. And if they are, working directly for them and they know who their employees are, it will increase that accountability and the certification or anything else that's required for the technical aspect of it, which, as I said, is with the companies and under the contractors board. Did I answer all of the questions? I tried.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I understand. I get it. My thing is just as someone who has primarily worked as a subcontractor, just trying to understand ways in which alternatives, right? So I think it's great if if businesses want to bring these folks in and make them employees and build their business that way. I also think that it's okay for folks to choose a different business model that allows them to have independent contractors, especially if they are for the integrity of their business, making sure that their contractors have the knowledge base and the skill set to represent their company well, right? And then I guess the last piece would be there are folks who, whether they can be brokers or not, like we have that in the insurance world, right? Where a person, they meet certain standards, they can open a brokerage and represent different, provide coverage from different places, or, you know what I'm saying? They become essentially an expert in what each company or whatever offers and what's going to be best to now their customer that they have built a relationship with of trust. So I think that there are, multiple layers where we can still plug in the protection piece. I'm not 100% opposed to this or anything. I'm just trying to understand from from the independent contractor, the actual person that's doing the sales, the ones that are doing the good jobs, right? Where they want to be in this equation.
So two points, Assemblyman Miller and Mark Kruger, for the record. The first point is that we did provide, there is a provision or there's an ability to be able to set up your own company as long as you got licensed, and then all your people under you would be licensed as well. That way there's that accountability. And then you could definitely contract or subcontract with that other licensee and set up a type of sales force in that manner. The other point I wanted to make is that we did carve out these lead generation companies. So that would be a 1099 employee who could actually go and generate leads, which is a very common occurrence in this industry. So you might find a lead generator or a certain warehouse type store saying, hey, do you want solar? And then they could take that information and pass it on to the company that they're contracted with, to which they would generate leads. So that's another provision we did leave as a carve out, and hopefully that addresses some of your concerns. I realize not all of them, but some of them.
Thank you for the time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was something that I was going to bring up, because it looks like here in Section 10, while there are some of the restrictions proposed in terms of a person shall not directly or indirectly on his or her behalf or on behalf of another perform or offer to perform any work concerning the system unless they are licensed or work for that licensed individual. But then in subsection 2, it does provide that carve out that you mentioned, that it does not prohibit a person who does not hold a license issued from generating leads or referrals. And then I think in the amendment, there's some additional information kind of providing guidance on what that would involve in terms of serving as a referral for licensed contractors, providing contact information of contractors, and setting up appointments. So I guess, and again, I really appreciate the intent behind this bill. Senator Donyate and I live pretty close to each other. I've had people come up both before and after I got solar panels on my house, have talked about bills that have passed this body and completely misrepresented what the intent of them are. I've seen ads on social media completely misrepresenting county, state, and federal programs and what that could mean for customers. Obviously, there's a range of potential arrangements for these systems, from direct sale and financing to lease arrangements, and understanding the impacts that those have on customers' bills. And so, and again, based on all those things, I think, we've seen a lot of, frankly, deceptive trade practices when it comes to the sale of solar generation systems. I purchased a solar system. I am very happy, and everything that I got lined up with the outcomes on that. But I also have experienced firsthand some of the issues that are trying to be addressed here. And while we do have some statutory language in place, I am getting towards the question. It seems like the issue that we have is where is the accountability? And so there are these third-party operators. They operate as independent contractors. They may work with multiple companies. They may represent themselves as part of the company. They make these claims. It sounds like the Attorney General is getting complaints. It sounds like a lot of the Attorney General's complaints are coming from these kind of third-party entities that are trying to gin up these sales. And when you get those, even though there are some provisions in place that indicate those are deceptive trade practices, it's a little bit hard to find the accountability, right? They're not a contractor, so they can't be held accountable by the contractors board. We don't have an occupational licensing regime for these types of advertisers that they could be licensed and have that revoked or otherwise be penalized. And so it sounds like part of this is also trying to get some of these things, get some additional evidence that can hold people accountable if they are misrepresenting the terms of any of these arrangements. That provides something really concrete that then the AG's office could go after, but also is just in general trying to strengthen some of the provisions to ensure that there's not kind of these loopholes or the ability for folks to dodge the enforcement that we meant to put in place, and that ultimately the result of this hopefully should be having a strong enough system that people know that they can't get away with misrepresenting the facts and can sell these products based on their merits. So I guess, can you speak to that, and particularly speak to the complaints that you're getting, and where are the issues in the current system? Because again, we do have deceptive trade practices laws on the books. So you just speak to that and why it led to this particular approach to try and rein in these practices.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Kruger for the record. If I could adopt your statement that you just made as testimony, it was absolutely spot on. Everything you said. We are getting an increase of complaints, a substantial and significant increase of complaints in this arena. And there are patterns in these complaints in that they're really relatively the same thing. Misrepresentation to induce a consumer to purchase. And not just a $10 item, but a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 item with significant impacts to their home. These are major decisions that should be considered carefully, and you should have time, rather than right there, sign here, to consider the implications that it comes. In addition to that, as you've heard from testimony here, that it's a highly technical area. There are different types, and I learned this myself recently, there are different types of solar. There's different assumptions that are made. For example, as I understand it, solar works better in cold weather with lots of sun rather than in hot weather with lots of sun. So these types of nuances are pretty much unknown to the average purchaser, myself included. And it's something that I think this bill now tries to slow the process just for a second to say, hey, look, have you understood everything that was told you? Do you understand this? It's a self-check for the industry. It saves them money, and it saves the consumers grief and money as well. I believe I answered all your questions. If I didn't, please ask me again, because I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. You did, I think, and I also want to put a finer point on Section 10, which I think is where a lot of the questions from the committee are coming, and also trying to understand kind of subsection 1 and subsection 2. And you spoke about folks signing on the dotted line and essentially kind of committing themselves not fully understanding. And so I just want to see if my understanding is correct. So the idea is that if you want to be a third-party lead generator in terms of, hey, are you interested in solar? Let me talk to you in general about the benefits, and then let me connect you to a company that does these installations. That is intended to remain in place as a business model. What is really trying to be prevented is those third-party folks actually getting a commitment and a contract finalized when in fact they haven't done the work to evaluate roof space, to evaluate the electrical panel, to really flesh out the details. They're kind of doing some guesstimates and some quick math, and then getting people essentially committed into a contract. And so that is the piece that is intended to be taken out of kind of the third party role and made sure that it's placed within a licensed contractor only. Is that a fair representation?
Chair Mark Kruger, for the record, that is absolutely a fair representation. However, I'd take it one step further. It isn't just a best guess, it's outright misrepresentation to induce consumers to purchase.
Thank you very much. Members, any additional questions for the presenters? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to testimony. We'll begin with testimony in support of Senate Bill 293. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support, please do come forward. Either here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Welcome. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. My name is Chloe Chisholm. That's CHLOE-CHISM, Government Relations Advisor for NV Energy. NV Energy is in support of SB 293. This bill adds much-needed consumer protections surrounding deceptive and unfair sales practices that take advantage of Nevada's most vulnerable communities. Bad actors in the residential rooftop solar industry often mislead customers to believe that they will be receiving an NV Energy product or service. Just last month, one of our customers shared an email solicitation that was sent to them containing NV Energy's logo, making it seem as though it came directly from NV Energy. This is just completely unacceptable. And due to these misleading tactics, NV Energy is forced to expend countless hours and resources to remedy the confusion and to protect our customers from these deceptive practices. We supported this bill in the Senate and appreciate the opportunity to express our support to the Assembly as well. And we would like to thank Senator Doñate for his leadership on this important issue and urge the committee to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Watts, committee members, Misty Grimmer with the Ferraro Group representing the Nevada State Contractors Board. We have worked closely with Mr. Kruger and Senator Doñate on this bill to get all of the language that you guys just talked about for a long time really exactly correct. As he said, we're kind of the sister agency that is the enforcement arm of this industry. Last session in 2021, we worked with Senator Brooks in passing Senate Bill 303, which put in the levels of regulation over these types of activities into 624, and so now we're supportive of what the AG's office is doing and putting the sort of the balance to that into 598. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committees. My name is Ronnie Young. I represent the IBW Local 357 in Las Vegas, Nevada. We represent over 4,000 members in the Southern Nevada area. We fully support this bill. We supported it on the Senate side. We continue to support it. I think this consumer protection is vital. As on a personal note, my grandmother, who is a first-generation immigrant from Cuba, who English is her second language, was almost victim of such type predatory business models. I think that this should be addressed as quickly as possible, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and members of the committee. My name is Nick Schneider. That's Schneider, representing the Vegas Chamber. We'd like to thank Senator Oñate for bringing forward SB 293, and we are in support as we believe it establishes standards that will ensure honest and accessible sales and marketing practices within a fairly quickly growing industry. Thank you for your time, and we urge your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. I'm here on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce today. Listening to the proceedings, it reminds me of roughly 20 years ago when we created the Solar Generations Program. And Mr. Carter may understand, that was a great incentive program for rooftop solar, but it ended up with a lot of panels on north-facing roofs. This has been an issue that we've dealt with for a number of years, and I think that this piece of legislation moves the ball forward as far as the consumer protections that we need for this growing industry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Watson, members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry, Government Affairs Manager for the City of Henderson. I want to compliment Senator Donace for this bill that will shine a bright light on the shady practices of unscrupulous scam artists who are preying on residents in Henderson and other communities throughout Nevada. Oftentimes, when people fall victim to those who this bill is targeting, they turn to their mayor or city council member to seek help. SB 293 would add safeguards meant to protect individuals before they suffer the negative consequences, the type of which have been described in detail during today's bill presentation. So for these reasons, the City of Henderson stands in support of SB 293. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Benavides, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Watts. For the record, Leonardo Benavides, Government Affairs Manager for the City of North Las Vegas. I just want to ditto Henderson's testimony, but without all the puns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Watts and members of the committee. For the record, Christy Cabrera-Georgeson, Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League. We're here in support, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Sarah Adler, today representing IBEW 1245. Renewable energy holds such promise in Nevada, and it is completely wrong to mislead consumers in the way that has been done. So we appreciate the sponsor and your support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else coming forward in person at this time, BPS, do we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 293 by phone?
To provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 293, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Thomas Berg. I'm president of the Nevada Alliance for Retired Americans, NARA. I represent 19,500 retirees and elderly people in the organization. I'm here in support of SB 293. This is a simple response for me. This bill will help protect Nevada seniors and other low-income consumers who unfortunately fall prey and are the most targeted and impacted by deceptive and unfair practices seen in the rooftop solar industry. Please join me in support of SB 293. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, for the opportunity.
For the record, my name is Matilda Guerrero, and on behalf of Battleborn Progress, we're in support of SB 293. This bill would provide consumer protections for purchasing rooftop solar panels while also helping Nevada to reduce its dependence on fossil fuels through energy conservation, electrification, and increased access to renewable electricity. This bill is a ray of hope for a cleaner and more sustainable future for our state and our planet. By supporting this bill, we can show the rest of the nation what can be achieved when we harness the power of the sun. This bill is more than just a bright idea. It's a powerful tool to help us create a brighter future. We urge your support on this critical measure. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 505. You are unmuted and may begin.
Hello, I am Peter Guzman, President of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, today in support of SB 293 because we believe it will protect all Nevadans from deceptive and unfair sales practices from the residential rooftop solar industry. Consumers have had to deal with misleading contracts, shoddy installations, failed inspections, and false promises of savings. SB 293 is an important bill that will protect consumers from false and misleading acts in the marketing and sale or leasing of solar panels. Finally, SB 293 will provide important protections for seniors, low-income consumers, and most vulnerable that have been most impacted by the deceptive and unfair sales practices seen throughout the residential rooftop solar industry. In closing, I want to give a special thanks to Senator Doñate, who is always looking out for the most vulnerable, and we appreciate it at the Latin Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, next caller, please.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 293, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window. There are no other callers choosing to provide testimony in support at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 293. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition, please come forward. Welcome. Whenever you're ready, please state your name for the record. You can begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts and the committee. Thank you for your time. For the record, my name is Brian Johnston, spelled BrianJohnston. We want to thank Senator Doñate for bringing the bill forward. We are only in opposition given the fact that we don't agree with the current language of the bill. We like the spirit of SB 293. We want to propose some updates to close some loopholes and eliminate potential exploitation of Nevada homeowners. We're very much in favor of protecting NRS 598. My partner Chris and I have been in the solar industry on the residential side for each over 10 years. The problems that we see with the bill center around Section 10 related to the W-2 requirement. If implemented, it still does not track the behavior and history of solar salespeople. What happens today is that if a salesperson gets fired for these deceptive practices, they just go down the street to another solar company, they get hired, they repeat the same issues all over again. There's no tracking of that. There's attorney general complaints, but it doesn't go back to the person making those misrepresentations. 1099 versus W-2 won't change that. There's still no fiduciary responsibility on the salesperson for what they're saying to Nevada homeowners. We've been in conversation with Senator Doñate and Mr. Kruger and his team as well. We want to propose to the Assembly and to the Senator our identification database. It does not add fees to the state, to the utility, to consumers. We want to create a process to, for salespeople for identification. We're doing it in Nevada. We're doing it across the country. We've got good support. But the process ultimately is there's a registration and background check of any salesperson, any sales company. There's an ID number assignment once they pass a background check. There's a standard of training, and this is the big point that I think is missing too from the current bill, is that the misrepresentation many times are not malicious. There's no standard of that training, so we can set that standard and make sure everybody has that same knowledge base to represent the consumers. Otherwise, we create a fiduciary responsibility for these salespeople, and we wrap it up for every single consumer with a recorded QA call by video. It records that customer's face, their acknowledgement of all the terms written in even on 293 here to clarify that they do have a true and full recorded understanding of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Jessica Ferrato here today on behalf of SEIA, the Solar Energy Industries Association. We're the national trade association. Through advocacy and education, SEIA and its 1,000 member companies work to make solar energy a mainstream and significant energy source by expanding markets, removing market barriers, strengthening the industry, and educating the public on the benefits of solar energy. SIA is strongly committed to consumer protection. We are continuously developing resources designed to safeguard consumer rights and provide stakeholders access to important materials. Our industry survives based on satisfied customers telling family and friends and neighbors about their experiences. Our members want the state to take action against bad actors who take advantage of customers. We worked on legislation in 2017 through AB 405 to standardize consumer protection language, and again in 2021 on SB 303 with the Contractors Board to again strengthen protections to consumers. We worked on the state's with the Contractors Board to get regulations in place on SB 303 and then helped coordinate the distribution of the rules out to our membership. While SIA does support portions of the bill, we have a few concerns and are opposed to some portions as well. I want to highlight the portions of the bill that we are supportive of. We support confirmation of customers' identities and understanding of the information, requiring recording of communication, and consistent paperwork for industry contracts. We understand that there have been consumer complaints, and we also want to put provisions in place to be able to address those bad actors and protect Nevadans. The few areas of concern that we have are the following. The bill would restrict any sales to be done through an employee of through a licensed contractor. We are not aware of any other industries that have this restriction. We have suggested that any person who is not an employee of a solar company but is providing sales services would be required to register with a state agency. This would allow for traceable and penalization for any offenses or complaints. The bill would another suggestion would be to allow for the customer to, the bill would allow for customers to void a contract after it has been signed and agreed to. Our industry is committed to quality and transparency. However, under this specific proposal, a small clerical error could result in voiding a contract, costing businesses tens of thousands of dollars per project after work has already been performed. This would have a chilling effect on the industry, as financing companies would be very wary of doing business here. We have seen a lot of growth in the solar industry in Nevada. We want to ensure that growth happens in a responsible and ethical manner. If there are problems and complaints, we want to work with the state to correct them. I want to thank the Senator and the Attorney General's office. We've been in conversations with them for months now. We're continuing to provide some suggestions on language that could be amended to resolve our concerns, and are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none at this time, I just encourage you, with the point that we are in session, please get any additional feedback you have to the bill sponsor and to me as the committee chair as soon as possible. And one thing I will say is, yes, we've definitely taken action, but there are still problems and we need to address them. So thank you. Go ahead, sir, whenever you're ready.
Christopher Tricola, CHRISTOPHER, TROCOLA, Mentis Corp. And I've been in the solar industry for almost a decade now. My entire career has been direct sales, 1099 contractors, as Assemblyman Miller had said before. Having that restriction and preferring to go W-2, I would prefer 1099 pretty much every single time. It's allowed me to help my family, it's helped me to grow as an individual, and provide a status for myself that I wasn't able to do as a W-2 employee. And it's going to happen in a lot of the industry as well. So the only issue that we have is the W-2 employee side of the bill. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to ask anybody to reinvent the wheel. There's already language, there's already licenses available for sales that are 1099, including real estate agents, financial institutions, financial advisors, insurance agents. Even barbers and beauticians are required to have a license in order to be able to cut your hair in a public place, right? That's not currently available here in the United States, not just in Nevada, but in the United States. So having a database that's going to be available to be able to track behaviors, track work history, be able to provide that standard of training to say this person's been trained to this, having the state put in the recommendations that they choose to have these reps follow and have these salespeople follow, especially coming up on the summer sales season. Nevada is one of the most desired states to come and sell in during the summer programs, and people from all over the country fly over here and drive over here to sell. And we're not suggesting to block anybody from doing that, but create a barrier of entry and a standard of training that allows these people to be able to make the money that they want to make, how they want to make it, whether it's W-2 or 1099, and protect the consumer in the meantime. And if there's a bad actor, very easily be able to go online, check the status. It could be as simple implementation as utility companies or the permitting offices having the license number available right there on the form and denying moving forward through the installation until somebody's license can be put on there that assigns that fiduciary responsibility, and that person can now be tracked and they can be prosecuted in the future if they are seen to participate in deceptive or malicious sales practices. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone else wish to provide testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 293 here in Carson City? Seeing no one coming forward at this time and no one in Las Vegas, BPS, can we see if anyone would like to provide testimony in opposition by phone?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 293, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Hello. So, Chris Derbyshire, I'm actually in Las Vegas.
Sir, can you
and I
please hold?
wanted
Since you didn't come forward before, we're going to see if we have anyone on the phones, and then after that, we'll come back down there. Thank you.
Hi, this is Catherine Wiskowski, Katherini, Wyszkowski. Chair Watson, members of the committee, Sonova Energy International is a national provider of solar energy as a service. Founded in 2012, Sonova services more than 250,000 customers across 40 states and U.S. territories, including Nevada. Sonova is a residential solar and storage service provider that teams with installers to provide financing to customers. Sonova's contracts extend up to 30 years, and we have long-term relationships with our customers built on trust and confidence. Sonova supports customer protection and the significant measures Nevada already has in place. Deceptive and unfair business practices damage solar customers and the solar industry, and I want to assure you that you have an ally in Sonova in protecting Nevada consumers. I am reaching out today, however, to voice Sonova's opposition to aspects of SB 293. I want to just call your attention to two small changes that will allow this legislation to provide intended protection to Nevada consumers without making it very difficult for some or all law-abiding solar providers to continue to operate in Nevada. First, I'd like to suggest a minor language tweak. While customers have 3 business days to rescind an application, solar companies have 48 hours to have verbal communication with them, according to Section 2. For consideration of holidays and weekends, solar companies should have 2 business days to reach out to customers. I'd also like to add that Sonova has a 7-day rescission period. Second, the amendment limits sales to employees of the contractor and only allows third parties to be used for lead generation. Solar contractors specialize in the installation and repair of solar systems and have passed exams and other licensure requirements appropriate for such work. They leverage third-party marketers for sales because they do not have an internal marketing team that can scale sales. We agree with SIA's recommendation to require independent sales agents to register with a government office. This will improve accountability without removing solar salesperson opportunities in Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to present these comments today. Sonova believes that with more collaboration between the proponents of this bill and the solar industry, we can identify best practices that protect consumers, increase trust, and improve transparency.
Thank you very much. And while I know I did receive comments from your company in opposition, if you could please again follow up with the bill sponsor with proposed amendments or language changes, we would appreciate that. BPS, can we move on to the next caller, please?
Hi, my name is Ben Arith. That is AIRTH. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I'm the policy director at Freedom Forever. We're a national residential solar installation company. We recently opened up an office in Las Vegas to service Nevada that employs nearly 400 people. We also appreciate, the legislation and what it is attempting to achieve. And Freedom Forever takes very seriously consumer protection and agrees with much of what has been stated here. We also care deeply about the quality of our installations and the experience of our customers. One of the key amendments the solar industry offered on the bill, specific to Section 10, which was turned down, unfortunately, would be to create a salesperson registry, making consumer protection measures more robust compared to the bill as written. This is only a common sense approach. A salesperson registry, mirrored after several other states in the U.S., would provide the traceability and accountability between the salesperson and the contractor performing the installation, which again is exactly what this legislation is attempting to achieve, while also providing more security through fingerprinting and background checks to those who work directly with homeowners face to face. Why these amendments were turned down is confusing when this approach would only strengthen consumer protection. Instead, while this bill claims to be protecting consumers, it only provides token benefits and is seen as really a punitive measure against the solar industry, primarily because other construction industries utilize 1099 contract workers. If we want real consumer protection, let's collectively get back to the drawing board and create something that provides real protections, while not completely disrupting the solar market, which would slow down our clean energy goals and only create job loss. We don't disagree with the intent of the bill. We just feel there's a better way to get to the legislative goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. And again, if opponents could provide some information on the sales registry systems that have been implemented in other states and provide those to the committee and to the bill sponsor, we'd appreciate that. Next caller, please.
Hello, Chair Watson, members of the committee. Thanks so much for letting me speak today. My name is Julia Piper, Julia-Piper. I'm Vice President of Public Affairs at GoodLeap, and we are speaking today in opposition to SB 293 unless further revisions are made. I do want to be clear that we support the broader intent of this bill, but respectfully request additional amendments to ensure that it works for both consumers and both the solar industry and its financial affiliates. For context, GoodLeap is the largest financier of residential solar systems in the nation with over 20 years of experience in consumer lending. Through our point-of-sale technology, we connect homeowners with carefully vetted local installers for products ranging from solar to home batteries to home improvement products like windows, roofing, and HVAC systems. Our system's used by more than 26,000 solar and home improvement professionals, and that includes in the state of Nevada, where we work with 57 solar installation companies and have served over 30,000 Nevadans since 2018. As a licensed lender in all 50 states with a 20-year track record and oversight by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, we are fully committed to quality work and consumer protection, and we're aligned with you all very much on that front. It's in our interest to ensure that customers enjoy their solar purchase and continue to pay down their loan over time. With that said, as currently written, we're troubled that SB 293 would enable consumers to void contracts without proof of harm or malfeasance, which will have far-reaching consequences that put a chill on investments and create broader uncertainty in the Nevada market. This legislation sets a troubling precedent for how contracts are treated. The language is very broad and does not provide any avenues for resolution. This is particularly concerning for parties like us that are not involved in the sales process but are nonetheless affected by this legislation. Based on recent amendments we've seen to Section 2, the bill would allow consumers to void a contract at any point within 4 years for issues that are non-material to the contract or the work delivered, such as clerical errors. We respect the need for clear customer communication and industry standards. However, that punishment is not reasonable or proportional to the violation and creates deep uncertainty for lenders like us. In addition, it is unreasonable that failure to furnish documents in any language requested would be cause for a voided contract. It's reasonable to have the language in which the majority of the solicitation occurred be the language in which documentation is provided. However, there are lines in the bill that broaden that out to any language whatsoever as cause to void the contract. So we'd like to work with the sponsors on that front. Finally, quickly, while it's not our line of business, we know that many solar companies rely on third-party marketers for sales service, as they are primarily contractors that are skilled in the process of installation and contract work throughout the life of the project. We do not think someone's type of employment or method of compensation is a fair or necessary metric for allowing or disallowing them to sell or market solar. But that does not mean we oppose greater oversight. As others have mentioned today, there are other examples of licensing or registrations and certifications in the state, different from a licensed contractor, but nonetheless a oversight process that we think would be applicable here. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to continue working with the sponsor and other members on getting this language right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And for those who have written remarks, please send those into our committee staff. And again, please provide any amendments or additional background information to our committee staff and to the bill sponsor as soon as possible. I am going to also ask, I know we have several other callers on the line, particularly if you have written remarks, please send those in and abbreviate your remarks. We do still have 2 additional bills to hear, so while we want to have a robust hearing and get the information out there, if you can quickly get to your points, we would appreciate it. BPS, can we go to the next caller, please?
Hello, this is Lee Barber. I would like to thank Chairman Watts and the esteemed members of the community. I would like to thank you for allowing me to testify in opposition of SB 293 in hopes that additional amendments can be made. I am also I am the regional manager for Legacy Power in Las Vegas. We're headquartered in Utah with operations, installation facilities here in Nevada. I'm also the owner of Fortitude Roofing in Nevada, so I'm a licensed contractor myself. I would like to speak quickly on Assembly Miller's point on 1099 contractors. I can tell you that we have 80 plus team members currently in Nevada who all choose to be 1099 and would prefer to stay 1099. I'm also familiar with quite a broad range of other 1099 employees in the state of Nevada, and they would also like to stay 1099. Legacy Power supports the bill, and the language of the bill is what we would like to oppose to an extent. We would like the committee to know that Legacy Power supports the broader goals of the bill, and we agree there are steps that can be taken to enhance solar consumer protection, but the provisions in SB 293, which include the prohibition of contracted solar sales and marketing services and multi-year provisions of recordings and the ability of customers to void contracts without proof of harm, will place financial strain and undue risks on the residential solar and have unintended consequences, creating market uncertainty. The residential solar industry is committed to consumer protection as well as Legacy Power. And we believe it's in the industry's best interest to ensure customers have a positive experience with their solar systems from the sale to the operation of the system. Legacy Power currently takes steps to do so by doing full training with Solar Legacy University, including understanding solar and ethics and selling, as well as full criminal background checks on all 1099 contractors. We record all welcome calls with customers at the time of purchasing to confirm that they understand everything that was explained by the sales professional, including that homeowners know that they will still have an NV Energy utility bill.
And sir, if you could begin to wrap up your remarks, please.
We also do, yes, sir. We also do all communications in Spanish with Spanish-speaking customers and have Spanish-speaking contracts. So we would just like the committee to know that we support consumer protection, but we would like some of the language to be rewritten so that we can work with the language in the support of solar in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Watts, members of the committee. My name is Gabriela Olmedo, O-L-M-E-D-O. I'm an associate at Advanced Energy United, a business association working to make the energy we use clean, affordable, and reliable. We're supportive of many portions of this bill that work to improve consumer protections and meet best practices to protect Nevadans. However, I'm here today in opposition because there's room for small changes that would greatly improve the bill to ensure that this is a quality piece of legislation that achieves intended outcomes while ensuring solar companies can reasonably comply. We would like to continue working together to make this a robust bill that protects consumers but maintains a welcoming environment for residential solar to continue providing benefits and savings for residents of sunny Nevada. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. BPS, next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits 987, please press star 6 to unmute your phone. Again, caller with the last three digits 987, please press star 6 now. Chair, this caller seems to be having difficulties unmuting their phone. Would you like to move on?
Let's move on to the next caller and see if we can get them back on in a bit.
Caller with the last three digits 905, you are unmuted and may begin.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Brown-May, and the committee for your time today. I'm Courtney Welch, Courtneywelch, with SunPower. I lead our policy and regulatory strategy across the interior U.S. SunPower is residential solar storage, EV charging, and grid services company. We're one of the longest standing solar businesses in the world, established 37 years ago. We serve 1.5 million customers nationwide, including over 3,000 here in Nevada. We partner with 27 dealers in Nevada. These are small, locally based businesses that conduct sales and installations. And one of the reasons why we've been so successful is because we are the top rated solar provider in the United States. And we take that ranking very seriously and understand that part of that honor means preserving consumer protections across all the markets that we serve. The intention behind the legislation is one that we support. We just see the need to make sure that there are some very minor amendments in order for it to A, achieve its intended outcome, and B, so that companies like ours that pride ourselves on consumer protection can reasonably comply. So first, I'd like to say thank you for the work that's already gone into drafting amendments to the bill that will continue to protect consumers and allow us to reasonably comply with the law. To keep my comments brief, I will just go ahead and echo the recommendations made by Catherine with Sonova and Jessica with SIA. First, to extend the time frame for welcome and sales confirmation call to at least 2 business days. This is really standard business practice for SunPower and many other companies. The reason this is so important is because so many initial sales conversations are in person. But before a consumer proceeds, we have this recorded welcome call to double check that the customer understands what they have signed on to, the terms, pricing, design, timeline, etc., that they have not been misled or have any additional clarifying questions. And so we just request a couple extra days here. In fact, just a few more hours, really. And second, I do also want to urge you to consider the sales registration system in order to track third-party salespersons. 1099 employees are really important to our business, as you've heard from several companies on the call today. We urge you to make these very modest amendments to achieve the bill's intended outcome, and I want to thank you for the time to speak today. Thanks.
Thank you. BPS, next caller, please.
Hi, Chairman Watts and esteemed members. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Mark Hugh, H-U-G-H. I'm with One Solar. We're headquartered out of Utah in Woods Cross, and also we have an office in Las Vegas, Nevada. My position in the company is the qualifying electrician, and I want to thank you for your time, for my time at this time to talk. I want to keep it short because I know I agree with what's been said. We support the board's goals of this bill and agree that there are steps we can take to enhance solar consumer protection. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your remarks. BPS, next caller, please.
There are no other callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Now we'll go down to Las Vegas. Sir, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Chris Derbyshire, C-H-R-S-D-E-R-B-Y-S-H-I-R-E. I'm the owner of a solar broker, Best Solar Now LLC. We currently have 36 contractors. I want to make opposition to the proposed bill unless the amendments are made, specifically to Section 10. The way the bill is currently written, we'd basically eliminate 1099 contractor jobs in the industry overnight. A lot of people, like Assemblyman Miller was saying, a lot of people just want to be a 1099 contractor. You want to protect the consumers. I get it. I completely agree. The residential industry, solar industry in general, is committed to increased customer protection and holding bad actors accountable. Nevada is my home and the home of my business. If this is passed the way that it is, it basically kills our business overnight. We take a lot of pride in transparency and education with our customers and with our sales reps. We've invested countless hours into additional training and education for our reps to make sure that they're not misrepresenting the products that they're selling or on the financial or on the solar side of it. We founded ourselves based on being a brokerage so we could provide different options for people. So yeah, if you take away the 1099 position, it just, like I said, basically hurts us directly overnight. We're on the same page when it comes to misinformation and more transparency. We represent ourselves. We have our own identity. You can Google us. We have our own website. We use our own badges, our own shirts, so we don't misrepresent ourselves at all, pretending to be somebody that we're not or trying to pretend to be Nevada Energy. Our installers do verification calls to verify the information is all understood by the customers for what they're signing up for. I'm in favor for additional education and licensing to sell solar and the financial products that are associated with them. I think just a general certification would be appropriate. Like other people were saying, when you have third-party sales for vehicles, homes, or other financial products, just having some sort of a standard or certification that's met, I think that's appropriate, instead of just making it a W-2 requirement across the board. And that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Seeing no one else coming forward to provide testimony in opposition at this time, we'll move on to testimony in the neutral position on Senate Bill 293. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in neutral, please come forward. Seeing nobody at this time, BPS, do we have anyone wishing to provide neutral testimony by phone?
To provide testimony in neutral of Senate Bill 293, please press *9 or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Chairman Wood and members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tony Simmons, T-O-N-Y-S-I-M-M-O-N-S. I'm fairly neutral on this bill at this time, but I do want to commend the Legislative Council for writing an excellent bill. I'm sure it will achieve the desired result. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. BPS, next caller, please.
There are no other callers choosing to provide testimony in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator, Mr. Cross, any closing remarks?
Thank you so much, Chair Watts. I have a few remarks, and I'll allow Mr. Kruger as well to chime in case if I miss anything. I want to dispel a few statements that were made that I believe is misinformation. First and foremost, this bill adds protections to what is currently has been in statute. We talk about the rescission of contracting, etc. That already exists in the law. We want to make sure that we're clarifying the protections that consumers understand so that if they find themselves in the deceptive practices that are occurring, that they have the ability to remediate them and what they're entitled to. This is not me purchasing a toy from Toys R Us or going to Target and complaining because I purchased something incorrect. We are talking about products that are thousands of dollars worth that can be installed on someone's home, that can change, especially depending on your age, which is what my family had gone through. I also find it interesting that the folks that testified in opposition in this bill are also the ones that have a lot of complaints from constituents and throughout this state. And so take that with what you will. You know, times are changing. We are seeing that there are companies that have moved in with this sales model, and they will continue to move in. We heard testimony that folks come throughout this country into this state to practice do in this demeanor. And the problem that we see is, you know, I would refute this. While folks are coming into the state to sell solar panels, they also close the contract and they leave, and then we have to clean up the mess that we see from that action. And I don't believe that this will kill any businesses. In fact, I actually believe that in some of the provisions of what we have for W-2s, you know, we want to make sure that there's a system in place so that the workers understand what this entails. And I would contend that with the W-2 provisions, what we have is not working, obviously. The structure that we have right now with 1099 workers, there are no requirements or incentives to train them. If there's a product, et cetera, there's questions as to registries and so forth. Those requests have not been sent to us formally for consideration of amendment or implementation of the bill. And so I caution my committee, the folks on this committee, to realize what is actually going on and the provisions that we can do to protect consumers. After all, this bill was passed bipartisan. It was supported overwhelmingly by the Senate chamber, and I asked the colleagues that I have in the Assembly to consider that because it's important to protect the people who call the state their home. And I'll allow Mr. Kruger to. No, I think we're good.
Thank you very much for your presentation of the bill today. With that, I'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 293. Thank you very much for your patience. Senator Flores. We will move on to Senate Bill 338. So I'll open the hearing on SB 338, which revises provisions relating to off-highway vehicles. Nice tie. Go ahead whenever you're ready, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and esteemed colleagues. I am Senator Edgar Flores, proudly representing Senate District 2, and I am here to present Senate Bill 338. And may I say, today is Tyrone Thompson Mentoring Day in the building. Please make sure you go to 2244. We have amazing food, and it's open for everybody in this room. Please go out there. And I also have to say, happy May 4th be with you. It's a very serious day for me as well. And I see my friends are here in the room alongside of me. So if I may provide some context to Senate Bill 338, I'd like to first explain the genesis and the issue I am trying to address, followed by how I believe this bill gets us closer to that. And then lastly, I will preemptively address some of the concerns raised by opposition. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, maybe not that far away, we're going back to 2013, Senate Bill 343, Senator Goycochea and Assemblyman Ellison at the time brought forth a piece of legislation that did the following. It created a definition for large all-terrain vehicle, and at the time, and is presently the NRS, it reads as follows. A large all-terrain vehicle means any all-terrain vehicle that includes seating capacity for at least 2 people abreast and total seating capacity for at least 4 people or a truck bed. I am a part of the off-roading community. That is just a fancy way of saying we love going and utilizing our very vast, beautiful open land. And a lot of us own It's two major brands, but there's others. There's custom builts. They're called the Razors, Can-Ams, if you wanted to look them up, RZR or Can-Am. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It is a very expensive lifestyle. Not everybody can participate in it, but we put a lot of money into it, a lot. It is normal for somebody to say they've spent $80,000, $90,000 on one of their builds. It is normal for individuals to specifically live in specific areas of Nevada based on this lifestyle, to choose to live in a certain area of a city or a county because they have access to some of our off-roading trails. So when I first started the bill, and I don't want to reopen that chapter, but I just wanted to make it clear. When I first started with this bill, it was a very voluminous, very comprehensive bill in the Senate. And at the time, what I wanted to do is to replicate what other states have done, namely Utah, and take it to the next level. Off-roading is a billion-dollar industry. And it's a small club, but those who participate spend a lot of money in it. And I wanted to create and make Nevada the friendliest off-roading state in the country. And there's a whole host of reasons for it. Presently, right now, if you live in Southern Nevada, right when you get off the airport, I promise you, you'll see signs that say rent me, and you see side-by-sides that they're advertising. And they do these guided tours, and it's just because the industry is exploding and people love to participate recreationally in this world. So what I wanted to do in the origin of my bill is to have create a mechanism so that people who own these vehicles can make them street legal. And the reason I wanted to make them street legal, if I could provide some context, it is frustrating for somebody like myself who lives in Northeast Las Vegas. I live a few miles away from an off-roading trail, very famous recreational area, Apex. We're there several times a month, off-roading on the weekends. When I go there, or when my neighbors go there, or anybody in that side of town, what we have to do presently is you grab your side-by-side, you throw it on a trailer, you tow it there. That in of itself, to me, is a dangerous process. I think it is dangerous to constantly be towing things. We know this. I'll explain what I mean by that. You have to tow it there, and that means you have to have a truck or something that can tow. You get to the off-roading location, you unload, you off-road for several hours, you put it back on that trailer, and then you take it back home. The process, I'm going to start with the question of convenience. The process of putting something on and off a trailer is inconvenient. But that's not on its own a reason why we should change the law. What is a reason we should change the law is the question that I posed before this committee and with my original bill is what's safer? Somebody driving those 2 miles on their side-by-side that they spent $60,000 on, off-roading and coming back, or having a truck with a trailer that they are pulling on the road. I would argue that it's more dangerous to be towing a side-by-side. Number 3, when you get to the site, if you're towing, what that means is you pull your toy off the trailer, you go off-roading miles into the desert, and you leave your truck there. What happened to us? We went off-roading, we came back, our windows were smashed out, our tools were taken. We were leaving our items behind. We could have prevented that had those of us who could have just jumped on the road and got there in 3-4 mile drive, for safety reasons, could have avoided that scenario. So that's what I was trying to do. However, and something that I admit, and why every single local jurisdiction came in support after I amended the bill is, I had not worked with them. My objective is to create the friendliest state in Nevada, in the country for off-roading, and to create a mechanism for us to be able to make these side-by-sides street legal. But I had not worked with the local jurisdictions. So here's my commitment, and here's why I'm amending the bill this way now. I want to come back. I'm going to devote the next 2 years, and I bring all of you as partners, anybody that wants to participate in this conversation. And I want to sit down with the local jurisdictions, particularly in Southern Nevada. The reason I am focusing on Southern Nevada is Northern Nevada is incredibly friendly already. There are counties in Northern Nevada and cities in Northern Nevada where you can utilize your side-by-side to access any county road or city street presently. That is already the norm. They have an incredible, beautiful relationship. The off-roading community is very strong, and it's continuing to grow. I want to mimic that relationship that is happening in northern Nevada, in southern Nevada. Understandably, I know that there's limitations. We don't want a side-by-side on the freeway. We don't want them in all areas of the community. But I do want, however, is for us to sit down with our county and with our cities, and we're going to define access points. If you live in these communities, in these outskirts that are within X amount of miles from a off-roading trail, we're going to allow you to utilize your vehicle to access it. That makes it easier, and it does all three things that I mentioned. It's more convenient for the off-roading community. It's safer for the folk on the road. I'd rather be next to another vehicle than somebody towing something, and sometimes they can't see when they're switching lanes, et cetera, et cetera. And it's safety precaution for the off-roading community that they don't have to leave their vehicles or trucks, the really expensive items as they're off-roading and leaving it behind for somebody to just come in and take advantage of that. So we achieve those three objectives. The reason I'm amending this bill is because presently the way it's written, for under the definition of large all-terrain vehicle, it has to be at least 4 passengers. And a lot of us in the off-roading community have 2-passenger off-roading vehicles, and we want them to be encapsulated here. This particular section is very important because presently you can go to the DMV, and I'm going to open it up on my side here, and there's a large all-terrain vehicle insurance declaration that you can fill out with the DMV presently. And what you do is you go to them, you tell them, here's the VIN number to my custom built, my all-terrain vehicle, whatever it may be, and you prove to them that you have insurance. If you do that, they give you a decal. The DMV will give you a decal. When you put that decal on your all-terrain vehicle, what happens is, when law enforcement sees you, they know that you have the minimum requirement of insurance. They know that you have it registered and you have insurance. And you can utilize it because, like I said, in northern Nevada, there's already areas where you can drive it on county roads or city streets. You can already do that. I want to do that in southern Nevada. So we want to define certain areas where you're going to be able to use them as access points. So the commitment in the next 2 years, and I'm putting it on the record, although it's not in this bill, is that cities and counties in southern Nevada are going to clearly on their websites draw a map that anybody from the off-roading community can access. That they'll say, I can go on these streets to access that off-roading trail. I can go on these county roads to access that off-roading trail. And that's what we're going to be doing collectively as this body. And if that doesn't happen, then I'm going to come back and bring back my original bill. But I'm going to give them 2 years to do this right, because I think that's fair, and I do agree that I was a little ambitious at the beginning without having had an opportunity to work with them. So that's all this bill does. I am not changing the rules, with the exception of I'm changing the definition from 4, it has to be 4 passengers to 2. That is all I'm doing presently, so that now, and I want the record to be clear, anybody with a side-by-side can now go to the DMV, and they could have a 2-seater and get this particular decal to access off-roading trails. This will be more friendly. And again, there's a lot of folk that have a 2-seater, not a 4-seater, and we move in that direction. Before I open it up for questions, that's all the bill does. I did have an opportunity to listen to the opposition, both in the Senate, and then I acknowledge that they've also sent you a letter explaining that they don't agree with large all-terrain vehicles being on the road now, they believe it to be dangerous. I am not suggesting that they were made to be on the road. I agree with that 100%. However, presently, you allow mopeds on the road. We allow mopeds on the road that don't have rollover cages, that don't have all these safety inspections. It's difficult for the off-roading community for us to agree that we agree to a moped being on the road, but we wouldn't agree in certain circumstances to allow something that is built specifically for safety and to really engage in dangerous activities when you're off-roading out there, to do very complex things with that side-by-side, and that somehow that is not adequate. Also, I am not changing the rules of the road. Presently, if you get the decal says you have to have insurance because you've demonstrated to the DMV, number one. Number two, obviously, if you're going to be on the road, you have to obey the rules of the road. If you can't go the speed limit, if you can't do certain things, then obviously you cannot be on that road. It doesn't change those rules. Those are already set in place. Lastly, this is already existing law. That decal, allowing 4 passengers to be on a side-by-side and utilizing our county roads and city streets, that is already the rule. All I am saying is there's also 2 passenger abreast side-by-sides that we are not capturing that the off-roading community is using. So I just want to make sure that we expand the definition so that we also capture them. So based on that, that's why I disagree with what the opposition is saying, because we're not necessarily doing anything different other than just expanding it so that we can include side-by-sides with 2 passengers versus 4 passengers. And with that, Mr. Chair, any questions you may have, please.
Thank you very much for that extremely thorough overview of this 2-line bill. One question I have before I turn it over to other members, do you have any idea what roughly is the kind of proportion of vehicles out there that are 2-seaters versus the 4-seater or vehicles with beds on them? You know, I kind of, in other words, the universe, and again, I know you probably don't have the exact data, but do you have any sense of the total universe of OHVs, how many are kind of under this current definition, and then how many are side-by-sides?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. And I'll say 2 things. Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. In my experience, there is no such thing as luck. That's a quote. And so I always like to go here and then on an issue that's here to make sure that I capture all my issues. But, Mr. Chair, I did ask, and I hopefully can get a response here soon, of at a minimum providing how many folk have requested the large all-terrain vehicle insurance declaration, how many have filled it out and submitted it to the DMV. That could at least at a minimum give you an idea of how many folk actively presently have it. But I wouldn't be able to give you any real data on how many are in Nevada. The force is strong with him. And so, Senator Edgar Flores, for the record, and so I'm going to try to provide you that information.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate that. I mean, I will say that when it comes to vehicles that are towing and those drivers, I do find your lack of faith in them disturbing. But members, are there any additional questions for the senator? Assemblywoman Miller.
Chair, I have quite a few questions, maybe 12 or 13 questions, but for the sake of time, I will take them offline with the senator because, again, based on the language in the bill, it just warrants 12 or 13 specific questions for the lengthy bill and all of the verbiage. So I will take that offline. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, Assemblywoman Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm curious, I didn't even know that there were statutes about all-terrain vehicles. So I guess I have some questions in terms of like parking, right? Like if once we get to that point. So I don't know if you've seen my obnoxious Jeep that I drive around with those huge tires. Okay. Not my car, by the way. So that's just considered a vehicle, even though it does go off-roading. But I think I want to circle it back to a kind of an issue that Southern Nevadans have is like this issue with HOAs and how once you're able to drive these, because I see it's going to be a progression, correct? Currently, the statute, I think it was back in 2015, this body gave HOAs limited ability to police public streets that are in communities, and they were very specific on what could be like monitored or policed, okay? Probably not using the right word. And so it's recreational vehicles, RVs, trailers, commercial vehicles, which is by the federal guidelines. So I'm curious, like, are you foreseeing once you're able to drive these that you would be able to park on the street? And by the way, I would not have an issue with that. And then how are you going to ensure this, like, that you protect other homeowners that are in HOAs that are non-gated, that are, public streets, so that they're not getting harassed by their HOA when they have vehicles like that?
Assemblywoman, thank you for that question. Senator Edgar Flores for the record. And I agree. I think something that would be appropriate for me to say is your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them, because sometimes you'll see a Jeep and it looks like it's an all-terrain vehicle, but really it's just a regular Jeep that's been heavily modified. You put tires on them, you've lifted it, and you've done a whole host of things. But that really is just a Jeep. It continues to be a Jeep. You have to register it, pass smog, do the same exact thing. Now, there are custom builds that your vehicle could eventually, with enough modifications, can get into a different classification. And that's also true because sometimes people will piecemeal a vehicle together. They'll grab a piece of this and a piece of that and put it all together, and it becomes something else, right? So the reason I mention that to you is specifically if we focus on large all-terrain vehicles, assuming we were 30 years down the road and we're the friendliest state, which that is my absolute vision and goal, that we are the friendliest state in the country when it comes to this billion-dollar industry. I would say whatever is true now with HOAs would remain true. If I may give you an example. Some HOAs will not allow you to park your business vehicle outside your property. Some of them won't allow you to park a huge semi outside of your property. Some of them won't allow you to park XYZ. Even though you can lawfully operate that vehicle on our highways, lawfully operated on our streets, lawfully operated from point A to point B, HOAs can still go above that and create limitations to your vehicle, right? And you would have to make adjustments accordingly, whether it is keeping it inside your garage, whatever that rule may be, in your backyard. If you have parking for it accessible, not everybody does, but some folk do, you would have to do that and abide by those rules. That would not supersede it, but that remains true today. I remember we were having a conversation, different issue, but it was with folk who take even like their police cars or their big company trucks to their homes, and the HOAs weren't allowing them to have them there. And particularly it was an issue if it's an emergency vehicle, because you needed to have it immediately ready in case some lines went down and you work for NV Energy or something happened with a pipe and you needed to be, whatever that may be, right? And so there had to be some type of negotiation there. My point to that is whatever those rules are, we're not going to be able to supersede it. All we're saying here is that, and eventually down the road, is that they're going to be able to coexist with us to access highway. And again, the objective here is for them to access off-roading sites, right? So if you live near an off-roading site, to make it easier for you to access it. That's the real vision, not so much that it becomes a daily driver. It doesn't make sense also for it to move in that direction for a whole host of other reasons. But the objective is just that we are very friendly and that people can get in their garage, get their off-roading toy, and get to the off-roading site.
Quickly.
I guess because what you're referring to is gated communities where the HOA actually owns that property. I'm referring to those communities where it's actually public streets, and to maybe add just suggestions, maybe add some protection so that particular HOAs don't decide to overstep their bounds. If maybe that vehicle is being parked because it doesn't really fit in any statute right now, and they could try to stretch that, and it could cause a lot of problems for HOAs and the homeowners as well. And maybe that's something you and I can talk about offline. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And certainly appreciate the overall vision that you have for the community. I would caution you to be careful not to choke on your aspirations. Assemblyman Gurr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are on a roll today, or on a robot. Senator, I happen to live in what I've been told is the largest HOA in the maybe nation, and we do allow them on the road, side bys, 4 up. and unfortunately, four-wheelers. And there's a ton of questions that I can bring up, but in the interest of speed, this is a very short bill. I would just like to talk to you about them offline. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any additional questions? All right. Thank you. And remember, Senator, the force will be with you always. With that, we'll open it up to testimony. We'll begin with testimony in support of Senate Bill 338. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, BPS, can we see if anyone wishes to provide testimony in support of SB 338 by phone?
To provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 338, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide testimony in support at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 338. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this point in time, BPS, can we check the phones?
To provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 338, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Apologies. Opposition. There are no callers choosing to provide testimony in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Finally, we'll go to testimony in the neutral position on Senate Bill 338. Anyone wishing to testify in neutral, please come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, BPS, can we check the phones?
To provide testimony in neutral of Senate Bill 338, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide testimony in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator, do you wish to make any closing remarks? All right. Well, seeing none, you can probably come back forward anyway because we're going to close the hearing on Senate Bill 338. Never tell Senator Flores the odds. We'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 424, which revises provisions relating to the Nevada Transportation Authority. Welcome back, Senator. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. And I'd like to start off by just saying, if you only knew the power of the dark side, 100% the essence of this bill. I wish I was kidding. I am so serious. Senate Bill 424 is me sincerely trying to fight the dark side. Let me give you the essence, the genesis of this bill, and then I will walk you through how we are fixing it collectively by partisan in an open forum. I've never in my life engaged with the NTA, the Nevada Transportation Authority. To simplify, and as you all know, 3 commissioners sit on it, and there is a whole host of applicants and or folk who are already in a specific type of industry who are trying to expand their business or maybe go into a different segment or model, and they have to go through the NTA. There's an application process, you file it, folk will then, once that application is accepted by the NTA, public notice is given, and then folk who may have some type of interest in that particular subject matter can try to intervene and say, look, we have concerns X, Y, Z. That's the process. It sounds very simple. Let me explain the dark side of this. During the pandemic, I was working with, at the time, Lieutenant Governor Lisa Cano, Commissioner William McCurdy, Senator Dina Neal, and there was a whole host of other people. And we were addressing specifically issues that are impacting negatively North Las Vegas and East Las Vegas. And I share that because I think it's important that all of us work with other bodies, right, that are also serving the community. And we said, why not address issues and try to get a better lens where our constituency are bringing up issues that impact all of them, and maybe we can work together. So, and we had city council members, we're all talking. Amongst this conversation, there were some folk, 2 of them in particular, who had applications before the Nevada Transportation Authority. They were working, the objective was to work deeply with the Latino community and then with our Asian community. That was their focus, but obviously they were gonna serve all members of the community. And one of the things that they wanted to do was non-emergency transportation services. One of the big issues we were bringing up, particularly during the pandemic, is that we have, particularly in communities of color, double-up homes are very normal. 2nd or 3rd generation homes living under one roof. So sometimes you'll take off to work and your mom or dad stays behind, or your grandparents stay behind. And they still need to go to the grocery store. They still need to go to maybe a recreational center or senior center. They still got to go get their medication. There's a whole host of things that they have to do. And we were talking about who's filling that void, who's providing some of those services. And we had these 2 companies explain that they wanted to provide services like that, not just in those things that I said, but in essence, that's what they wanted to do. We write a bunch of letters of support. We said, great. We stopped paying attention to it. Fast forward 2023. 2022. That application that we all thought was going to be clean, had so much support. There was a recommendation from an attorney, and the NTA said everything looks good. With one of them, the other one had some other issues. Long story short, it turns into a very tedious, long-winded process that exceeded 1.5 years. On one application, folk decided to just step away from it. They couldn't do it. Financially, they weren't there. The other application, they're still fighting it, and it's, I believe, in court. Why is this relevant? A petition to leave to intervene. It is a process that after somebody goes to the NTA, you file your application, and I want you to think of it through the context of a small business, okay? You apply, you submit your application, and this application is very tedious. They ask for your financials. They'll ask for contracts. They'll ask for ideas of, what segment of the industry are you trying to come into and serve. They'll go through the entire application. Somebody, in essence, anybody who lives in the jurisdictional bounds that you're going to be serving is the criteria, can file this petition to leave to intervene, saying, you know what, there's too many people already doing this. We don't want them to come in. And it starts this lengthy dance. And in that dance, there's discovery. So if I could pose a hypothetical that would probably frustrate all of you. Let's say Assemblyman Miller is trying to open up a business that is moving person A from one place to the other. But I already do that. I file a petition to leave to intervene and say, I don't want Assemblyman Miller to open up that business. And I make him go through these hurdles for 1.5 years, 2 years. And in that, there's a discovery process where I can go on a fishing expedition and can force him to open his potential new clients, what contracts he signed, the industry he's going to be serving. I can see his strategy. He opens up his entire model. They then deny his application, and then what do? Oh, by the way, I heard that you were going to try to open, you were going to work with Assemblyman Miller. Give me that contract instead, because it's not going to work with him. It's been 1.5 years. It's too late. And they steal that contract. It is incredible to me that we allow this to work and operate in the state of Nevada. Now, I get it that there's a whole history in Nevada where this goes back to. But for me, it was very frustrating. I reached out to the NTA, and I've been working and having conversations with them. They're joining us today. I am making it abundantly clear they are not here in support of the bill, but they are here to provide expert testimony only. So what I am doing with this bill is, and by the way, any industry, imagine if restaurants did this. There's already too many pizza spots. We don't want them. Don't come in. If attorneys did this, there's already too many attorneys. You can't come into the profession. If we allowed for this process to be the norm, it is, at its core essence, in my opinion, it really anti-capitalism, and it really goes against the very core and essence of what we think business is in the state of Nevada and in this country. So, how do I address it? I'm now walking you through the sections. Section 1, page 2, lines 3 through 7, they're just saying we're not going to accept the petition to intervene, and we're not going to go through this long, lengthy dance. Instead, what we're going to do is the NTA is going to do their regular background check, and they do a lengthy background check. The NTA is also going to do financials. They check your financials. They want to make sure you can actually do what you're saying. They're also going to have the authority to bring you before the body so they can interview you, ask you questions, interrogate you, make you bring more stuff in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is captured, the hearing process is captured in lines 17 through 24. So they can come in and still have that open process. And by the way, during this entire process, there is nothing stopping somebody who has a concern from notifying the commissioners in the NTA. In that same hypothetical that we started off with, where Assemblyman Miller is trying to come in, if I have some concerns, I can share that with the NTA. They can take it into consideration. Here's why I don't think he should do it. He has this history of X, Y, Z. They can do all that. But there's not going to be a specific process to halt the application. Then, if you go to page 4, and this is very important to me, page 4, lines 39 through 43, says the authority shall approve or deny an application for a permit within 9 months after the date on which the authority receives the completed application. This is so that we avoid any small business ever being put through some type of process meant solely to slow them down and to make them run out of money so they cannot, because they can't afford their legal fees, because they don't know how to navigate a complex process, that does not become the only reason why a business does not open in the state of Nevada. And so within 9 months. Now, I've been asked, what happens if the business doesn't provide everything they're supposed to? It's going to get denied. But if they've provided everything, and they've done everything right, 9 months should be more than sufficient amount of time. Now, I asked the NTA specifically if they thought that amount of time would be sufficient, and I was told yes. However, I've also had an opportunity to speak with folk that are involved in the private sector and or who represent people before the NTA, and they told me that they don't believe that is true. So I would like to get that clear on the record, so maybe we could ask that of the NTA. The other thing is something that I've asked the NTA, which is very important. I said, is there hypotheticals, is there scenarios where the petition to leave to intervene caused a good? It actually brought something forth that, but for that process, they wouldn't have caught it themselves. And I've had a hard time getting a response to that and finding areas that they would have found it, that they only found it but for somebody bringing it to them. The private sector and some of the folk that represent people before the NTA have told me that's not true, that they do believe that there are examples where but for the petition to leave to intervene, but for that process, the NTA wouldn't have caught it. But from what I've been told is that they catch it too. In other words, you bring something forth that the NTA had already identified internally. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, that is the intent. That is how I seek to address this issue. That's why I have this bill before you. And I did want to put on the record again that the NTA is here, but they're not here to testify in support, only as experts.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think we all share your concern about going through a long-winded process. So one question that I have before I'll turn it over is, particularly in Section 1, so you talked about the petition to leave to intervene and the way that individuals can use that to hold things up. I think members of this committee are also familiar with the Public Utilities Commission, another regulatory body which also has petition for leave to intervene to participate in various regulatory decision-making processes. And I guess the concern here, and also having worked in other areas where we know that there are state decision-making processes there where people can file protests and engage in those processes, and then usually there's judicial review. I think my concern is the potential impact that this has, the provisions in Section 1 have on people's due process and ability to participate if they have concerns. So I'm just wondering if you can speak to that a little bit generally around how does this balance the due process issues, and also are you aware of is there a judicial review available if somebody, if this process is undertaken and somebody believes there is a serious issue with it, is there the ability to bring forward a legal challenge if they disagree with the outcome, considering that they may not be able to file the petition for leave to intervene in the process?
Thank you for that. Senator Edgar Flores, for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll start first by giving everybody some context to where these would apply. Non-emergency medical transportation carrier, that is kind of the hypothetical that I provide. If somebody moves a person from point A to point B, I'm not talking about an ambulance. This is probably somebody that's moving somebody to a senior center, taking them to a doctor visit, maybe to go get groceries. Limousine providers, the taxi service up here in Northern Nevada, charter buses, household good movers, and tow operators. I am not suggesting that those industries are not important, and I am not suggesting that we don't want to make sure that we are doing a very tedious and precise investigation of each applicant trying to come into this arena. But I will say that there's other states that to get into some of these industries, it is the equivalent of you just getting a business license. That is how easy it is for you to get into these areas in other states. Now, I am not suggesting Nevada is identical to every other state. We obviously have additional concerns, namely because we, when it comes to, for example, charter buses or limousines, because we're serving and we're protecting a large tourist industry that is very important, right? But I am saying that I believe that we can address the concern of ensuring that we have the best providers out there, the best companies, through the process without the petition to intervene. And here's why. The NTA will go through their own investigatory process. There's a mandatory background check. They check your financials, and they can bring you in before a body to be questioned. The way it happens now is once an applicant files, they assign it to one of the three commissioners, and then they take the lead on it. And then they submit a recommendation. But even that commissioner is getting a recommendation from their own internal legal staff and administrative staff that they have. So there's layers of recommendations happening. And even after that, the three-member panel, even with the recommendation from the NTA for approval from their staff, even with the recommendation from the person who is assigned the case, the application, even with those two things happening, you can go to the three-member panel. I'm calling it a panel, but three-member commission, and two of them can still say, no, we still have a lot of concerns, and we're going to deny it. So there's really three times where an application will likely or could be denied. Additionally, and then on top of that, in this process, there is an opportunity because anytime somebody has an application, it gets filed. There's public notice put out there, which is how people find out, wait a minute, I might have an interest in this. That's not going to change, and I'm not removing that requirement. You're still going to publish that. So anybody with an interest and a stake in that case should, and I want to encourage them to come forward. But what I don't want them to do is to think that they're going to be able to utilize this process to turn it into a fishing expedition or to draw it out so that hopefully this small business doesn't come in and become a competitor. And so because of that, Mr. Chairman, I believe that that's why we have enough safeguards in place with the public notice and then the 3 layers of review that I believe that concern of ensuring that we're protecting the public and the applicant, we're achieving that.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions for the Senator? Senator Kasama.
Thank you, Senator. Does this include taxi cabs, Ubers, vans that drive seniors to the community center? Are we talking about all applicants?
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Senator Edgar Flores, for the record, yes, anybody that would go before the NTA is who we are capturing.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Gallant?
So I wanted to go back to that section where you're trying to put a limit on, like, that was 9 months, because you said are they on the phone? Are they here? Because I'm curious, like, how long does it typically take, right? I'm thinking 9 months is too long. That's a long time for somebody who's trying to start a business to be waiting on the sidelines. I'd like to see bureaucracy have more limits, so I'm glad that you put this through, by the way, included that. So I would like to know, kind of, let's see if we can get an answer to that.
Thank you. And we do have somebody in Las Vegas, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And if you could just please state and spell your name for the record and then address the Assemblywoman's question. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Erickson, Erickson. I am the administrative attorney at the Nevada Transportation Authority. In answer to 6 months, that would be incredibly difficult for the NTA to get through an application process. The application applies to everyone but TNCs such as Uber, Lyft, and any other such body. When we talk about a limitation on the time that an application can be granted, you have to understand that there's numerous phases. First, the application has to be completed. An application for an NEMT, the non-emergency medical transportation, is approximately, it could be up to 100 pages in length. We require the financial background. It's just a pro forma, which is something that tells us what they think what they have, what they think they're going to be able to do, because it's important that we don't allow carriers to come into business that will not be able to afford to do the work that they are asking. That financial investigation takes in a lot of time, is very and it's done by people that are very invested in doing it the right way. We also have compliance requirements. And one of the compliance requirements is the fingerprinting and background, getting the criminal history background of any person that's an owner or will be in a key position. The NTA does not control that background application. We ask the people that are applying to get their fingerprints done. The Nevada Department of Public Safety requires the fingerprints to be placed on a specific form. If it's not on the form, it'll be rejected. They also require the form has specific information that must be included, such as birth date, height, weight, color of eyes, color of hair, place of birth, all those different things. If the applicant does not fill that out appropriately, it's rejected. Again, then the Department of Public Safety also has a requirement for how payment is made. If payment is not made in that manner, it is rejected. So that is a key part of the compliance. I don't think any of this body would want people driving their parents or being in control of anybody in travel that has a background, a criminal history background that we don't know about. And we don't deny applications based on background unless it's important. But it is something that I think everyone knows should be done. And again, the NTA does not control that process. The applicant has to do it, and then the Nevada Department of Public Safety gets the information back to us when they want to. We cannot force them in any way to provide it in a certain amount of time. So when you're talking about a time frame of completing an application, yes, the NTA can complete that application process if the applicant provides everything that's required. But you also have to understand that if you make this application process, someone gets granted an application just because not 6 months or 9 months or a year goes by, there will be people who will submit applications that are incomplete and will not provide the documentation that the NTA requires and hope to wait us out and get a CPCN or permit at the end of 9 months without having provided anything. The NTA's focus is the safety of the traveling public. And what we do is an application that we believe gives us all the information that the transportation will be done appropriately, that it will be done in a way that reflects the state of Nevada and that is safe.
Thank you. One item I'd just like to follow up on. So looking at the provisions of the bill here in section 3, I believe this is the language we're talking about, where it's proposed shall approve or deny an application filed pursuant to this section within 9 months after the date on which the authority receives the completed application. Can you speak to your understanding of the term completed application? When would you deem it complete based on the language proposed under the bill?
Patricia Erickson, Chair, I believe the word complete would have to encompass a review by the different divisions of the NTA. So it would come in, and we have an applications manager and a financial team, they would have to look at it to see if all of the documentation that's required is in there. And then we would have to have the decision of, are the financial requirements fulfilled? And I think that if everything is present that we need, that would be complete. The authority will do anything that the legislature asks us to do, but I think we would also have to start a policy of what is complete and giving people a certain amount of time to provide documentation to complete their application. And if they don't, we would have to then reject it. And we have not been doing that at the NTA. We try to help them get through the process, but we cannot force people to do what we ask them to do.
Thank you for that clarification. So it does sound like, based on that understanding, and it sounds like there would be additional work to do to potentially implement this law, but the clock would essentially start after it had been deemed that all of those materials that the applicant had been supported in getting everything together, and then that a potential timeline clock would start. And if you do have any suggestions on that language to align the intent, we would appreciate any follow-up with that. Members, are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to testimony on Senate Bill 424. We'll begin with testimony in support. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of SB 424, please come forward. Seeing nobody at this time, BPS, can we check the phones?
To provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 424, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dora Martinez. I represent the Nevada Disability Peers Coalition. On behalf of my members who are utilizing some of the service similar to what the awesome Senator Flores is sponsoring, we fully support this common sense bill. The more guardrails you put, the more protection we have. As you may know, I'm blind and can't legally drive yet. I wouldn't want to. We really absolutely support this bill, and we thank you so much. May the force be with you. Bye-bye.
And with you as well, Ms. Martinez. BPS, next caller, please.
There are no other callers to provide testimony in support at this time.
Thank you. Seeing nobody else in support at this time, we'll move to testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 424. Welcome. We'll begin here in Carson City, then we'll go down to Las Vegas, and then we'll go to the phones. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Watts, member of the committee. My name is Neil Tomlinson, Tomlinson. I'm here today representing a company who is licensed by the NTA as a non-emergency medical transportation provider. They are considered a contract carrier. I want to start out by saying that I appreciate meeting with Senator Flores, and I understand the concerns that he's had, and why he brought the bill. There are parts of the bill that I agree with, and there's a key part that I disagree with, and I'll get into that very briefly. I started out my career as a regulatory attorney at the Public Utilities Commission, and then as I went into private practice a few years after that, I represented many clients in front of the Nevada Transportation Authority for over 20 years. Clients from all types of the industry. The NTA regulates moving and storage companies. They regulate taxi cabs, limousines, charter buses, tour operators, a whole host of different types of companies that they represent, and that includes non-emergency medical transportation, which is a client that I represent called LifeTrans. And they are actually located in North Las Vegas, and they provide services as a contract carrier, which means they provide the transportation services only through contracts, not out to the general public. So for example, you wouldn't have them, you wouldn't have companies or people calling them saying, hey, I need to get picked up here or there. They only do it through contracts with, for example, insurance companies or healthcare facilities, those type of facilities. So that's how they operate. The biggest issue that we have with this bill is Section 1. The other sections that have the 9-month process, I'm in support of that. I think the applications do take too long, and I think that should be fixed. So I agree with that part of it. But Section 1, the way it's written, to me, I read it to mean that it's only contract carriers who are not allowed to file these petitions to intervene. That based on the way it's written. If that's not the intent, which perhaps that's what Senator Flores said, then I think that just needs to be redrafted. If it applies to all companies across the board, I still don't think that that's the way to go, and I'll explain that later, but I think that's better than what we have here. The problem that we have here is it looks to me like you're trying to isolate contract carriers, such as my client, from being able to do that. And I think that that's discriminatory to those type of business segments. If you're going to do it for everybody and do it fairly for everybody, but don't single out one segment of an industry for whatever reason. So Section 1 is the one that we disagree with. I want to talk a little bit about the process of the petitions for leave to intervene. I don't always like the process. I've been on both sides of them. I've filed applications and I've had interveners. And I've also intervened on behalf of other clients. So I've been on both sides of it, and I've seen it work very well, and I've seen it work very poorly. But the fact is that there's several regulations that are in place that, if they're utilized correctly, this process works very well. And those sections are NAC 706-3965 through 706-3969. And what these regulations say is that, just as Senator Flores says, when an application is filed, it gets assigned to one of the 3 commissioners. They are the hearing officer. The hearing officer has complete control over that case while he's the hearing officer. And there's 3 things that he can do with the petition for leave to intervene. Number 1, he can deny it. If the petitioner does not show a direct and substantial interest, he can deny the petition, same way as the Public Utilities Commission can do it. The second thing that the hearing officer can do is they can limit the participation of the intervener. They can say, okay, you can intervene, but you can only intervene on this issue or this subject, and you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. They can limit. They can do an order that limits, and that's happened many, many times over the 20-plus years that I've been practicing in front of the NTA, and it works. The third thing that they can do pursuant to these regulations today, these are all in place right now and have been in place for many, many years. The third thing that the hearing officer can do is he can limit the number of interveners. So for example, if 10 interveners try to come into the case, the hearing officer say, no, look, I think we've got enough, and you all have basically the same issue you're coming for. He can limit that number. So those 3 things can be done by the presiding officer to make this process work in the way that it was intended. If the hearing officer, for whatever reason, does not choose to do that, then certainly there's issues that could be abused, and have been, for sure. But those tools exist, and they should be utilized, because nobody wants that. I don't want that on behalf of any of my clients. When I file an application, I don't want that system to be abused. And likewise, when I intervene, I try to not abuse it as well. But the hearing officer is in charge of it, and he's got to take control of the case and tell the parties what they can and cannot do. The last thing that I want to address is there was a question about whether there was judicial review. So the issue that I have, if, say for instance, my client who provides service throughout Clark County, but they actually physically are located in North Las Vegas, and as I said, they're a contract carrier. If they were not allowed to intervene in a matter that they chose to intervene in, they would not be a party then to that application, the proceeding, and therefore they would have no legal standing to challenge for judicial review because they're not a party to the transaction. So that's the issue that I see with that. So with respect to the bill, our opposition is only focused on Section 1. We think that it's discriminatory against a certain type of carrier based on the way it's written. And if, in fact, that wasn't the intent, then I would suggest that it should be rewritten to make sure that this includes everybody who's regulated at the NTA, so that we have one rule for all types of carriers and not try to piecemeal, you carriers over here can do this, but you can't over here. It makes no sense that way. You need the uniformity in the process. So those are my comments, and I will continue to work with Senator Flores and appreciate his willingness to work with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tomlinson. We appreciate you providing that background for us and your commitment to continue to work with the bill sponsor. We'll go down to Las Vegas now. Would ask that you try and keep your remarks brief. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kimberly Maxon Rushton with the law firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of the Livery Operators Association. And I will not reiterate what Mr. Tomlinson said, but I would like to point out a couple of very key points, Chairman and members of the committee. Specifically, the intervenor process is one that is not just specific to the administrative arena, but it also is utilized in both state and federal court. It is available to individuals who are non-parties in order to protect an interest or to raise a concern with the tribunal or the administrative body. As it applies specifically to the world of commercial transportation, and in particular here in Nevada, I think it's important to note that the intervenor process is very narrowed, and it's narrow because of this esteemed body. Specifically, this body has stated in its declaration of purpose under Nevada Revised Statute 706.151 that competition may not be used as the basis for denying an application. And then looking at the specific regulatory scheme that Mr. Tomlinson referenced, it reiterates that again and again. So as it currently exists, an intervenor may not participate in a matter for anti-competitive reasons. They may not unduly delay the application process, and they may not unduly burden it by unnecessary discovery requests or things that would otherwise be interpreted as being disruptive or abusive of the process. So those standards are currently in place. But what's more important is the fact that the entire intervenor process is a creature of regulation. It is specific to NAC 706, and it is one in which I would strongly recommend that this body defer to the NTA to address. The regulations pertaining to the intervenor process are very old and antiquated, but it's not to say that they're not effective. But as I stated during my testimony on the Senate side, and as I represented to Senator Flores, I agree that there are areas in which the intervenor process can be improved to ensure that the concerns that he's raised are properly addressed. But that should be done in the regulation process, when each of the applicable industries that are otherwise regulated by the NTA have a chance to participate. So for those reasons, I would we object to this and ask that you recognize that the process is one that is governed by regulation and allow the NTA, which it has recently stated in a workshop, that it will open up a regulatory workshop following the legislative session in order to address the intervenor process. The other thing I would just note for your attention is the concern with respect to the 9-month deadline. In addition to being an attorney that currently practices on a regular basis in front of the NTA, I'm formerly the chairman of the NTA. I can tell you that no one would like to see the process expedited more so than the staff as well as those individuals that appear before the NTA. But the problem with the language as it's currently written is it directly conflicts with your declaration of purpose under 706.151. Again, the legislature has given the authority to the commissioners to govern commercial transportation in Nevada. And in doing that, they've given them the authority to accept applications, review applications, and make a determination as to an applicant's suitability. The language as it's currently written strips that. It's an automatic approval. And we should not have that because it could be at the expense of our fellow Nevadans as well as the millions of tourists that visit here every year. As Ms. Erickson eloquently stated, there is lots of levels to the application process. And oftentimes, even when a completed application is submitted, there are outstanding things, there are information that it prompts that the NTA needs clarification on. If an applicant is not responsive, that should not work in their favor to allow them to obtain an application in 9 months. And additionally, the criminal background check is one which, in all due respect, the NTA has no control over. They ask the applicants to complete the fingerprint process, they submit it to the FBI through the central repository, and then it can be upwards of 6 or 7 months before they get those fingerprint returns back. That has nothing to do with an intervener, nothing to do with the staff. It's simply the part of the process. So I would respectfully submit that there is an opportunity to encourage the NTA to process applications faster. There is an opportunity to even put in some guidelines in which they should look at applications and maintain those in an expedited fashion. But the discretion to award or to grant an application should be solely within the purview of the authority and only after they have completed what they believe is the appropriate investigation. So thank you very much, Chairman and members of the committee. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next person wishing to provide testimony in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brent Carson, B-R-E-N-T-C-A-R-S-O-N. I'm an attorney here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I represent several limousine companies, several non-emergency transportation companies, household good movers, tow companies, everything that is regulated by the Nevada Transportation Authority. I agree with what Ms. Rushton and Mr. Tomlinson said, so they took a lot of my points. I'm not going to double up on what they said, but
thank you.
I've been doing this in front of the Nevada Transportation, which began as the PUC and then the Transportation Services Authority and now the current Nevada Transportation Authority for over 20 years in front of them. What I do know is that NRS and NAC 706 is complicated. It's intertwined. You can't single out one little process such as the intervention process and expect it to now run congruently. This will cause ripples that will go all the way throughout 706 that have not even been contemplated yet by this bill. And that begins with just the simple first thing that happens is the notice. You give the notice to the public, says if you have an interest in it, what can you do? Well, right now, we have a process that says we file a public records request, we get a copy of the application and see what's going on. Now, the application that we receive from the public records request does not contain any financial information, doesn't contain any market information, and it's barely a skeleton of what this person is and what he's trying to accomplish. That is the reason that we intervene. As Mr. Tomlinson says, until we are granted an intervention status, we're not a party to any of the application or any of the proceedings that are to come. And therein lies the problem. If we're not a party, we have no judicial review and everything like that. Now, the legislature that came before you and came before me and came before everybody here, probably in this room, has created the Nevada Administrative Act, which is 233B. And therein lies, it says you have to be a party to have standing to file the petition for judicial review. Now, that's something that Mr. Tomlinson said earlier, but let's go back to the very beginning. 706-151 is the legislative declaration for Nevada Transportation Authority. Now, one of the directives set forth in there is to foster sound economic conditions. That applies not only to new applicants, but also to the current regulated entities that are practicing and transporting the general public down here in Las Vegas and up in Reno. These companies have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to the main goal of 706, which is to protect the traveling public. That's it. We are a state of tourism. Everything has to run correctly. If you get a bad ride, something happens, your driver's DUI or on drugs or something like that, that reflects badly. That is the reason that this was created. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, we have all heard about the taxi wars. That is the reason the Taxi Cab Authority came through. It's because they had to put regulations on the taxi cab drivers and the companies coming into to make sure that everything was operating safely. Back to the Section 1 of this bill on the interventions, Mrs. Rushton said that it's a creature of regulations, and that is true. The decision to allow an intervener is not taken lightly by the hearing officer or the NTA. In fact, it's a two-step process.
And
The
sir,
hearing
I
officer has-
very much appreciate your remarks. I would encourage you to send full written remarks, and appreciate that you did skip some portion of your testimony, but if you could begin to wrap up, we'd appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate your time. But anyway, the intervention process is not taken lightly at the NTA. It's two steps. First, the hearing officer has to either admit or allow or deny the petition for leave to intervene, and then it goes before the full authority. And as you guys mentioned earlier, the full authority are three appointees by the governor. That's their job to decide this. They make the hard decisions. We're asking about a privileged license to operate, to transport our tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else wishing to provide testimony in opposition, please come forward. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Alan Waxler, ALANWAXLER. I'm the owner-operator of AWG Ambassador here in Las Vegas. We have state authority. We have unlimited authority. We're one of the 8 unlimited licenses that are in Las Vegas, in the state of Nevada. I oppose this vehemently. I think I'm a believer of not fixing something that's not broke. There is a process to get into this arena. It's definitely not an easy process, but it's there for a purpose. There are people that are traveling here. Nowhere on the planet Earth do more people have money in their pocket than in Las Vegas. The last thing we want to have happen is the wrong people moving people, having somebody take someone out to the desert, roll them for their money, and it's a problem. And I love that this organization makes sure that everybody's held accountable, that people are safe, and that they've done their due diligence. A lot of drivers that we've had over the years, a lot of people have larceny in their heart. We don't stand for it. We have people that have worked for us and they steal. It's not unusual for somebody to walk up to a driver and say, here's $20, can you take me down the street? We don't allow it. We find it out. We have cameras in every vehicle. We see what we need to see when we want to see it. And I just think that for us to make, certainly things could always be changed for the better, but to eliminate the process or change it this late in the game, I just think it's not in the best interest of the industry, and it's not in the best interest of the traveling public. So with that, I would open up for any questions as an operator. I will tell you that a lot of times when you intervene, I've been intervened on, and I've intervened. And what it allows is a deeper dive into the background. Some things that won't come up on a criminal report. How about character behavior and doing things that would not be deemed appropriate? And drivers that steal decide that they can't get a job somewhere else, and they come out in front of the authority. The authority doesn't know that they stole from me. So anyways, I know you want me to keep it short, so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm available if anybody wants to ask me any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. We're going to move on to the next person wishing to provide testimony. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Davis. It's ThomasDavis.
I am one of the owners of Reno Medical Transport, DBA GMT Care in Reno, obviously. And I was the last non-emergent company approved. We were approved in April 2022. We filed our application in 2019, so you can see it was a long period of time. However, we had 3 interveners. There was REMSA, the ambulance company up in Reno, Lyon County Fire, and Carson City. At the time when we applied for our license, there were no licensed non-emergent transport companies in northern Nevada. There was a few municipalities that were conducting these type of transports. And what this intervening process did for us is it helped us for an educational purposes. It allowed me to meet with my interveners, explain, educate, discuss how we did our processes, and safety above all. The process worked on our behalf. I mean, it helped us with the hearing office, allowing us to get started because they knew it was a huge need there. Also, it allowed the NTA to oversee us. And we were actually able to start, like I said, immediately, and we could, have financial fitness, and we worked with the interveners, and now I meet with them on a regular basis to go over things to make sure we're following the processes. So I definitely oppose this bill, and I'm available for questions as well.
Thank you very much. If there's anyone else wishing to provide testimony in opposition down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing nobody at this time, BPS, can we check the phones to see if we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in opposition?
There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to testimony in the neutral position. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in neutral on Senate Bill 424, please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward at this point in time, BPS, can we check the phones?
There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Senator Flores, any closing remarks? You seem to set the pace for much of the testimony. Maybe if you can set a quicker pace for closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to use the force here. Senator Edgar Flores, for the record, I just want to make it abundantly clear, we're not changing the fact that there's a 3-member commission that are going to review this. We're not changing the fact that there has to be a background check. We're not changing the fact that there's financials. What I am fixing is the fishing expedition that occurs. Whoever comes in first will always have the upper hand because they're going to consistently file these petitions to intervene to keep competition from coming into their space. Bottom line. If what we truly cared about was safety, then we would talk about that. We would say, you know what, we need a more detailed background check. If that's what they cared about. But the bottom line is folk are trying to keep people from coming into their territory. And I don't blame business from wanting to keep a bigger chunk of the territory. Of course, it's business, it's competition. But it is anti-Nevada, it is anti-American, it is anti-capitalism for us to continue. And for those, I really do appreciate the folk that came in opposition, particularly the attorneys and Mr. Nielsen, because I know that they operate in this space. Excuse me, Neil. I call him Mr. Nielsen, I changed his name. And Neil, I know they operate in this space. And I really do appreciate them working with me. And I am comfortable in operating and changing this language to address the concerns of safety, if that's what it boils down to. But I am not okay with us continuing down this path where we have us through government creation, a system meant specifically to prolong and keep business from coming in. Bottom line. And I am willing to work with the opposition with anything else, though. If they want to add some extra parameters. And I also want to remind folk that the 9th month hard stop does not require an approval. If the application is incomplete for a long time, they could deny that. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. If somebody's not bringing in their background check, they're going to deny that, of course. But it's in the best interest of the small business to provide everything. They're the ones that are trying to open the business. They're investing thousands of dollars, maybe even more, purchasing things. They have folk that are on payroll. They're waiting. The entire incentive is on the folk that are applying to comply. So this idea that you're just going to have a bunch of folk just because they're bored and let me just submit a piece of paper with my name on it and try to get an application, that's just nonsense. Okay, folk are investing a lot of money, sometimes their entire savings. They're trying to come into a space and they consistently get pushed out because this process is, in my opinion, by design intended to keep people in who are protecting their businesses, and it's been being misutilized. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time. I do appreciate your patience. I will continue to work with whomever, but if you agree that we can't continue down this path, I would appreciate your supporting this bill and that we move this out of here.
Thank you very much, Senator. I just will note that dreams pass in time. A lot of time has passed in this committee. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing on Senate Bill 424. Thank you for your time. Members, no. Yeah. Members, we do have one last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, please come forward. Seeing none, BPS, do we have anyone on the phone?
The public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Members, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, May 9th, I believe at 12:30, and hopefully it will go faster than this. We are adjourned.